Chapter 180. Even a true soul realm expert could not block the might of the raging flame divine craftsman. This could be seen from the trial space's rewards. Killing a strong queen insect gave 20 trial points and killing a raging flame divine craftsman gave 30 trial points, so the raging flame divine craftsman was much stronger than the queen insect. The queen insect had dropped a spiritual treasure bead that could not be sought, so there was no reason for the raging flame divine craftsman to not drop anything. A purple key. A giant hammer with a long handle. A scarlet red jade slip. A scarlet red magic bead. These were all the spoils of war left behind by the raging inferno divine craftsman. The purple gold key seemed to be used to open the treasure chest, the scarlet jade slip was a secret manual that recorded some kind of absolute art, and the magic bead and the giant hammer were both powerful equipment. Chu Tian picked up the 2-meter-long giant hammer and felt it sink in his hand, making it hard for him to hold it. Such a heavy weapon. If he didn't use his spirit energy, it would be hard to use it. This weapon could only be used by those with great strength. The jade trial token sent a message to his head. Chu Tian nodded his head in satisfaction. Magma hammer, this is a top-grade soul weapon. This hammer was not weaker than Shin Fengho's divine wind sword. Chu Tian picked up the scarlet red magic bead, flame-avoiding bead, this is a special defensive item. It can absorb all kinds of flames and store them, allowing the wearer to not be harmed by flames. This was a strange treasure, its value was not inferior to the magma hammer. This cultivation technique is called Strength of Magma, it seems like the raging flame divine craftsman's high-temperature technique. Chu Tian looked over the cultivation technique on the jade slip and then gave the jade slip and hammer to Nangong Yun. These two things are suitable for you, take them and use them. He really was worthy of being the leader, giving out this many rewards. Nangong Yun raised the 2-meter-long hammer. The shape of the hammer was cylindrical, and it was thicker than a person's waist. It was dark red in color, and it was made of metal. It was covered with bright runes, and it looked like lava was flowing on top of it. It was slowly spewing out a powerful energy. Everyone was shocked. This weapon was worth at least tens of millions of gold coins. Yun Xiao couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Big Sister was originally a very violent person, and now that she was holding this exaggerated giant hammer as a weapon, it was very fitting, but it was a bit too scary. Nangong Yun raised the heavy giant hammer and lightly waved it a few times. A strong gust of wind blew up, causing the others to not dare to come close. She laughed loudly and said, "It's enough. It was easy to use. I like it very much." Thump. The giant hammer smashed into the ground. The explosion of fiery red essence energy caused the ground within 3 meters to shatter into pieces. Everyone was caught off guard and their legs shook, almost causing them to tumble. Strong and fierce. Nangong Yun didn't mind the exaggerated shape of the hammer at all. She gently kicked the handle of the hammer with her leg, pulling it up from the ground and carrying it on her shoulder. "Thank you, boss, I finally have a weapon that fits me." Yun Yao secretly said to Yun Xiao with a serious expression, "Stay away from her in the future, do you hear me?" Yun Xiao wiped the cold sweat off his forehead, "I understand, I still want to live for a few more years." The strength of magma does not conflict with your family's cultivation technique, so I believe that you can cultivate them together. I believe that with this cultivation technique and this giant hammer, your battle strength will at least double. The weapon and cultivation technique did not suit Chu Tian, so he gave it to Nangong Yun. This could be considered making the best use of it. He had a use for the flame-avoiding bead. As for the remaining purple gold key, what use did it have? Everyone continued to search through the main hall, finding 6-7 silver keys and even a golden key. They all came from ordinary giants. The highest level treasure chest in the trial space was the gold treasure chest. Then what use did the purple gold key have? You guys take the gold and silver keys to find the treasure chests. Chu Tian shook the purple gold key, "I want to see what use this purple gold key has." The Craftsman Palace did not lack large amounts of gold and silver treasure chests. Because time was precious and they could not waste it, Nan Gongyun immediately took the key and excitedly went to find the treasure chests. Chu Tian carefully studied the purple gold key dropped by the Raging Flame's divine craftsman. This should be a key with a special function. Chu Tian looked around the main hall and a giant copper furnace appeared in front of him. The Raging Flame's divine craftsman came from behind this furnace. Chu Tian walked to the back of the giant furnace and within the raging flames of the furnace, he found a glowing treasure chest. Moreover, it was purple gold in color. He found it this easily. This was a little unexpected. A new problem had arisen. The purple gold treasure chest was inside the giant's furnace and this furnace could even melt fine iron. If Chu Tian's flesh and blood body entered it, wouldn't he be instantly burnt to a crisp? The flame-avoiding bead did not mean that it was immune to flames. There was a limit to the amount of flame energy it could absorb. The energy inside the furnace was very strong and even true soul realm experts could not withstand it. If Chu Tian entered it, he would definitely die. Since it's a furnace used for forging, I should be able to control the flames. Chu Tian quickly found that on the walls of the furnace, there was a large secret array. It was made up of a total of 64 arrays and a few of them could be controlled. Metal, fire, water, earth, and wind. Furnace arrays had distinct attributes. Under the combination of different attributes, the design of the furnace would change. In the process of refining different materials and weapons in the ancient times, it was through this method that the best furnace smelting plan was produced. First reduce the fire element and then increase the wind element. The inside of the cauldron exploded with a boom, and the raging flames almost spewed out. The fire element decreased and the wind element increased. Although the temperature dropped, the wind made the flames burn even more fiercely. Streams of flames flowed through the furnace like dragons. Understood. The 64 squares represented the 64 elemental arrays inside the furnace. A portion of them were fixed and could not be changed. Chu Tian needed to change the other arrays and find the best way to reduce the furnace's flames. It did not mean that the furnace would be safer if the fire element was reduced. Sometimes it would be even worse. This was like how Chu Tian had just changed a fire element array to a wind element array, making the furnace's flames even stronger. But this was not too difficult. Chu Tian even understood the principle of the elements suppressing each other. When he grasped the source energy arrays inside the furnace, Chu Tian quickly adjusted the furnace's design, suppressing and restraining each other. The temperature inside the furnace quickly dropped and it gradually reached a balanced state. This should be fine. The furnace was still filled with flames, making it hard for people to see what was inside. The temperature inside had already decreased by a large amount. Chu Tian took the flame-avoiding bead and walked into the sea of flames. A protective layer appeared around his body. Once the flames approached his body, they would be absorbed by the flame-avoiding bead. Chu Tian walked through the countless flames, but he did not feel any unbearable heat. However, he understood in his heart that the flame-avoiding bead could only absorb a limited amount of fire element and he could not stay in this place for long. Kacha! The purple gold treasure chest was opened. Chu Tian didn't even look at them as he put them away. Then he quickly left the furnace. He was completely unscathed, not even a single strand of hair was burnt. A strange square-shaped crystal. According to the Jade Trial Token, this thing was called the Treasure Room Key. A special talisman made of jade. According to the Jade Trial Token, this talisman was called the Substitute Talisman. As the name implied, it could be used to create a substitute to avoid fatal attacks. It was a special item used in the trial space and could not be taken outside. It was an ancient refining technique jade slip. According to the Jade Trial Token, this was a book that recorded a large number of ancient refining techniques. It was a priceless treasure in this era. The other two were fine. What made Chu Tian very curious was the treasure room key. Did he need this strange key to open the treasure room? But, how could he use it? Nan Gongyun and the others had already returned. Everyone had a large harvest. Since this hall was a place for forging weapons, there were no medicinal herbs or special tools found in the treasure chests. Most of the chests were weapons, armors, equipment, and even materials. Most of them were high-grade soul tools, and the total number of loot was more than a dozen. Dozens of high-quality soul armaments. This was definitely not a small amount. There were not many refiners in Central State City that could refine soul equipment. The four great families did not have many high-quality soul equipment. The harvest this time was very satisfying. Everyone had already spent several dozen minutes in the Craftsman Palace. They immediately packed up their spoils and began to head towards the center of the Giant's Labyrinth, the Giant's Treasure Room. There was a long distance from the Craftsman Palace to the Giant's Treasure Room. On the way there, they had encountered many strong giant guards. Fighting them was not a good idea, so Chu Tian chose not to fight and charged forward as fast as he could. Finally, everyone used 3 hours to reach the center of the Giant's Labyrinth, which was the Giant's Treasure Room on the map. But when they arrived at the Giant's Treasure Room, everyone was in a daze. The scene of the treasure room was too different from what they had imagined. From a normal person's point of view, the treasure room should be a magnificent palace. The Giant's Treasure Room was the center of the trial space, so it should be called a wonder. But what appeared in front of them was an empty palace. Just from the area, this palace was much smaller than the Craftsman Palace. The most important thing was that there was nothing here. Other than giant mirrors, they were scattered around in a disorderly manner. Floor, walls, and ceiling. Huge mirrors were installed in various places. The mirrors were 3 meters tall and had a golden base that could be turned. The mirror surface was smooth and without a speck of dust. Each mirror was surrounded by some kind of energy that released an ancient aura. On the back of the crystal mirrors, there were mysterious patterns. It was a ferocious-looking monster with the head of a wolf and the body of a human. It wore scaled armor and held a large trident in its hand. Its blood-red eyes stared at the intruders, as if warning them not to come closer. Other than that, there was nothing else. There wasn't even a single treasure chest. What was going on? What happened to the treasure room? This was clearly a normal palace. How did it look like the core of the trial space? How did it look like a hidden 10,000-year-old mystery? Chapter 181. The main palace was completely empty and filled with a strange deathly silent atmosphere. It was completely made of black metal, giving off a dark feeling like a mausoleum. The strangest thing was that there were layers of mirrors in all directions and there were many of them. The mirrors reflected each other and overlapped with each other, extending endlessly. When a person stood in the center, they could see countless mirrors reflecting each other. It seemed like there was no end to them, as if one person had turned into tens of thousands of people. These several 100-meter-wide mirrors were arranged in a certain pattern, making it hard to find the exit once one entered and making it very easy to lose one's sense of direction. The large hammer slammed into the ground with a dong sound. This is the treasure room. This is the treasure room. Pay every single hair. Nangongyun angrily said, "We must have been tricked by the map. Perhaps we were tricked by the trial tower's creator." The others also had the same feeling. They had found a large amount of half-step sacred level 10,000-year spiritual honey and the craftsman's palace had obtained a large amount of high-quality soul weapons. Everyone had worked hard to reach the center of the labyrinth, but in the end, there was nothing. There were no monsters guarding and no treasure chests appearing. How could this be justified? This was too outrageous. The map can't be wrong and the trial space's designer wouldn't be this bored. Chu Tian did not think this way. He could already feel that this arrangement was not normal. There was no reason for all these crystal mirrors to be placed here, but even he could not figure it out. Let's look around, there must be something special about it. I found it. This mirror is a bit different. Yun Xiao found a mirror that was no different from a normal mirror, but the frame was purple gold. It was unknown what material was used to make it, but it was very exquisite. It released a faint glow and there was no demonic totem on the back of the mirror. Feng Kai-dai curiously touched the purple gold mirror and found a recess on the back of the mirror. The recess was square and it seemed like something could be placed in it. Everyone thought of the treasure room key at the same time. Chu Tian took out the square crystal stone from the purple gold treasure chest and compared it to it. The size was just right, so he pushed it in without thinking about it. When the crystal stone entered the recess, it instantly merged with the ancient mirror, as if it had always been in the mirror. The ancient mirror shook a few times and was filled with energy. The patterns on the surface of the purple gold frame lit up one by one. The smooth, spotless surface of the mirror suddenly condensed some kind of powerful energy wave, as if it was about to melt, and a large number of ripples appeared. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Everyone felt that they could barely open their eyes because a beam of intense light, like a beam of light cannon, shot out from the mirror and hit a pillar in the distance. A huge hole appeared on the pillar. After the beam of light pierced through the pillar, it traversed the entire hall and landed on the metal walls of the corridor. Even though it was 6 or 7 miles away, the high-energy beam of light quickly melted the walls. A large amount of boiling red liquid flowed down the walls. Nangong Yun was tongue-tied, such strong energy. The crystal's function was to provide energy to the mirror, allowing the mirror to produce a high-energy light beam. In other words, the real key to the treasury was not the crystal, but the mirror, or more accurately, the light beam. This beam of light is so strong that it can melt a wall made of golden books. Feng Kai-dai said, "Could the door to the treasury be on the wall and we need to use the mirror beam to melt the metal to get in?" Impossible. When Chu Tian entered the giant's labyrinth, he had already experienced it. This trial not only tested one's strength and luck, but it also tested one's knowledge and skills. For example, the cube lock at the beginning, or the secret door to the puppet room. He believed that in the entire palace, there were many similar places. The giant's treasury was the core area of the trial, so it should be the hardest to crack. No one had even managed to crack it in 10,000 years. How could it be as simple as melting a wall with an extremely powerful light mirror? When Chu Tian was observing the terrain and thinking, a sharp cry suddenly rang out beside his ear. "The mirrors around us are all smoking." The mirrors in all directions were emitting waves of black demonic mist. The wolf-headed, human-bodied demon totems behind the mirrors seemed to have been stimulated by something. They all came to life and crawled out of the mirrors one by one. Shrill, ghost-like howls suddenly filled the entire space. What the hell? The totems have all turned into demons. Monsters came out of the mirrors one by one. They had the head of a wolf and the body of a human. They had a cold expression, a lizard's tail, and bat-like wings. It was a strange-looking beast. Yun Shao shouted, "There seems to be a lot of them, what do we do?" Chu Tian ordered, "Nonsense. What can we do?" "Fight." The fiendish demon was about 3 meters tall. Demonic chi surged into the sky, and its baleful aura was overwhelming. When it completely appeared, its physical body immediately disintegrated in the air, releasing a large clump of black mist that quickly approached the group. Everyone controlled the puppets to charge forward. Hong! The iron fist, which was flashing with annihilation runes, struck a cloud of black mist, and the black mist was instantly dispersed. Did they kill one? No. It wasn't that simple. The scattered black mist gathered together and appeared on the giant puppet's chest. It turned into a giant trident that pierced through the giant puppet's chest and came out from its back. The giant puppet was nailed to the ground. The giant puppet was invulnerable and even an illustrious soul realm cultivator would find it hard to damage it. This kind of demon had easily pierced through the puppet's body, just like piercing through paper. Feng Katie's face turned pale. "My puppet can't move." Lin Mu, Fang Han, and Yun Shao wanted to help, but it was useless. After these demons turned into black mist, their bodies were completely vaporized. No matter how strong the attacks hit them, they would just pass through their bodies. 7-8 monsters charged forward. The entire giant puppet had been torn to pieces. In another direction, the demon turned into a bow and shot out an arrow. This arrow did not make a sound at all, and Yun Xiao did not know how the arrow pierced through his body. The trial taker's jade tablet emitted a white light. Yun Xiao disappeared from the trial space. Yun Xiao had been eliminated. Everyone's expressions changed. This was the first time someone had been eliminated. Chu Tian said to the little fox, "They look like demons, do you have a way to restrain them?" The little fox shook its head and gestured a few times with its claws. Although they were demons, the little fox could feel that they were very special. It was as if they were protected by some kind of power, and in this state, they were immortal. No matter how strong the attack was, it would not affect them at all. Chu Tian knit his brows. How could there be invincible monsters in the trial space? This doesn't make sense. The little fox rolled its eyes, indicating that it didn't know either. This is bad. We can't stop them. Several dozen monsters charged forward and Lin Mu's and Fang Han's puppets were destroyed. The two of them were also attacked by the monsters and were instantly eliminated from the trial space. Too fast. Not only were the demons immortal, their battle strength was very strong and they were very fast. Before anyone could react, they had already been surrounded from all sides. Nangong Yun's face turned white seeing this. "We're done for." Before her voice even fell, a large group of demons gathered together and rushed over like a black whirlwind. What should they do? Physical attacks and elemental attacks were all useless. "I've got it." At this critical moment, Chu Tian suddenly had an idea. "Quickly. Use the light mirror to shine on it." Nangong Yun, Feng Kaidai, and Yun Yao were suddenly enlightened. That's right. It's the light mirror. Feng Kaidai was the closest to the light mirror. She rushed over, hugged the light mirror, and aimed it at a cloud of black mist. The instant the light shone on the demons, they let out shrill cries. The black mist quickly retracted, and they returned to their wolf-headed, human-bodied forms. All the transformations disappeared. Cracks appeared on the demons' bodies as they used their hands to block the light mirror. The little fox's eyes lit up and it immediately jumped up. It forcefully sucked in a breath at the demons, and the energy in the demons' bodies was like a wild horse, being sucked into the little fox's body. Like several dozen stone statues, they were all shattered. Nangong Yun swung her hammer and smashed it heavily on a demonic beast that had escaped the net. As expected, she successfully hit the monster and sent it flying, shattering it into pieces on the spot. Good. Success. The trick was on the mirror. An entire group of demons had been eliminated and no one had time to be happy. After the light passed through the monster, it landed on the mirror in front of it. It was reflected back and landed on the mirror behind it. The light was reflected 5-6 times. Ah! Feng Kaidai gave a shocked cry. She was instantly hit by the light and was sent out of the trial space. Nangong Yun loudly cursed, "Fuck! What is she doing?" She reflected the light back onto her body and killed herself. All of this happened in an instant. Feng Kaidai did not even know what happened before she was killed. Yun Yao said in a serious voice, "There are mirrors all around and the light has been reflected, so no one can predict where it is going. It is very dangerous to use the light mirror." The light released by the main mirror was reflected by several mirrors, forming a dense net of light. These light beams were very strong, and if they were touched even a little bit, they would be instantly killed. The mirrors in the main hall began to tremble. There were over 100 demons coming out. Nangong Yun was not confident in her heart. She steeled her heart and prepared to die. "I'll control the mirrors, you guys hurry up. Kill them all." The main mirror's position was very dangerous. Nangong Yun only hoped that before she was killed, she could kill this group of monsters. "Nangong, come back, there's no need for you to take the risk." Chu Tian stopped Nangong Yun's reckless actions. Since he had figured out the rules, Chu Tian had a way to deal with it. "Let me do it." Mind's lamp ignite. Divine Sense Release. Chu Tian instantly locked onto the positions of the demons. He used his divine sense to lock onto the primary mirror from afar. He controlled the primary mirror to turn, and a powerful beam of light shone on nearly 100 demons, instantly dispelling their protective powers. Little fellow, it's up to you. The little fox teleported to the side a few times and quickly sucked in a large amount of energy from the demons. These spirit form demons, once they lost their protective power, they immediately became very weak. Their energy was instantly sucked dry and they were shattered by the light mirror. You have killed a mirror demon. You have been awarded 3 trial points. You have killed a mirror demon. You have been awarded 3 trial points. You have killed a mirror demon. You have been awarded 3 trial points. The number on Chu Tian's jade token kept flashing and he instantly obtained 300 trial points. Nangong Yun shouted in a pleasantly surprised voice, beautifully done. Yunyao found that most of the demons had left the mirror and gathered together. She immediately warned Chu Tian, be careful, there are still many of them. Around 200 demons had gathered together. From 200 of them, they had gathered into a giant figure. Nangong Yun laughed, these idiots, don't they know that the bigger the body, the bigger the target? Boss, quickly kill it. As the light shined on it, the giant demon released large amounts of blue smoke. It was like it had been burned by a piece of iron. Although it cried out in pain, it did not return to its original form like before. It was still protected by the mysterious energy and was in an immortal state. What's going on? Yunyao was stunned, could it be that the light mirror has lost its effect? Chu Tian said with knit brows, it's not that the light mirror has lost its effect, it's that the demons have gathered together and condensed enough energy to resist the light mirror. Nangong Yun opened her mouth, this is also fine. Then how should we fight it? The newborn giant demon faced the sky and roared angrily. Countless black tentacle-like energy arms stretched out from its body. There were hundreds of them, making it look like a giant octopus. A terrifying pressure filled the air. It had already surpassed the awakened soul realm and reached an even higher realm. Even if this monster did not have an immortal state, it was not something Chu Tian and the others could defeat. Not to mention that the light mirror had no effect on it. Chapter 182. The demons were already hard to deal with. Now that they had fused together, they had become even stronger. Even the light mirrors had lost their effect on it. How should they fight this? The countless tentacle-like energy arms of the demons began to extend wildly in all directions. The sweeping power completely spread out in the main hall. A terrifying energy began to gather on the monster's body. This is bad. It seems like it's going to use its finishing move. Chu Tian was as calm as ice as he knit his brows in thought. This monster already had an overwhelming strength, it was hard for an awakened soul cultivator to defeat it. Now that it had an undying strength, any attack had no effect on it. Even the light beams could not force it back to its original form. This monster could not be defeated. But, this did not make sense. The trial space would not have problems that could not be solved, it was just that they had not found the right method to solve it. Chu Tian released his divine sense and scanned the mirrors. His heart suddenly skipped a beat, as if he had understood something. He waved his right hand. The main mirror turned several degrees. Pa! The beam of light fell on the normal mirror in front of him. After being reflected, it shot out 90 degrees, hitting the demon's body. A large amount of blue smoke came out and the giant demon screamed as it retreated a few steps. I already understand. Chu Tian could clearly see through it, he could see the mystery behind it, the beam of light shot out by the main mirror is the weakest. Every time it is reflected, its strength will increase. If it can be reflected by the other mirrors, the final strength will be enough to make it return to its original form. Nangong Yun and Yunyao were tongue-tied. This was too difficult. The mirrors were randomly distributed. If it was just a single reflection, it could be done, but how could he control the reflection and make it hit the giant demon's body after several reflections? Chu Tian released his divine sense, covering the surrounding ancient mirrors. Help me by a bit of time. All right. Yun Yao and Nangong Yun controlled the puppets and began to run around, attracting the demon's attention. Chu Tian used his divine sense to control the copper mirrors. He was glad that the demon's body was large, so he did not need to be too precise. As long as the reflection angle was just right, it was enough. The dozens of ancient mirrors slowly changed their angles. The beam of light shot out from the main mirror and landed on the first ancient mirror. It was reflected on the second ancient mirror, and then the third ancient mirror. After repeating this process for about 10 times, the light finally became several times more dazzling. Like a high-energy laser beam, it fiercely landed on the demon's chest. The demon shrieked miserably. The black mist around its body evaporated quickly, and it was about to return to its original form. There's hope. Chu Tian laughed. Let's go. Kill him. The little fox forcefully sucked in, swallowing a small half of the spirit body demon's body. Nangong Yun and Yun Yao controlled their puppets to charge forward, sending out their divine annihilation fists, shattering the spirit demon's body. No matter how ferocious the monster was, it was now suppressed by the powerful light and surrounded by a few people. Clearly, it was unable to defend itself. With a miserable cry, it completely broke apart. You have killed the guardian of the mirror, you have received 60 trial points. Chu Tian alone obtained 60 trial points. The little fox, Nangong Yun, and Yun Yao had also participated in the battle, so they should have received quite a few trial points. The rewards alone were enough to show just how strong this monster was. There were only a few scattered demons left in the main hall. Light beam, light beam. Nangong Yun quickly shouted, illuminate them to death. Chu Tian turned the light mirror and the light beam swept across. The demons were forced back to their original forms and the little fox made a move, killing them all. Yun Yao and Nangong Yun let out a long sigh. They simply could not believe what had just happened. They could not believe that they could survive in the hands of such a terrifying monster. This was all thanks to Chu Tian. If it wasn't for Chu Tian's strong judgment and insight, not to mention the giant demon that was formed, even a normal primitive demon would have been enough to destroy an entire team. Chu Tian was too strong. Was he still human? Perhaps there was nothing in this world that could stop him. Nangong Yun's worship of Chu Tian had already reached its peak. Even the arrogant Yun Yao could not help but admire this young man. The two of them were prepared to say a few words, but who would have thought that before they could say anything? At this moment, a sharp whistling sound came from the corridor. Several golden treasured swords suddenly shot out and landed on the mirrors around Chu Tian, changing the direction of the mirrors. The angles of these mirrors had been personally changed by Chu Tian, allowing Chu Tian to control the direction of the light beam. Now that they had been messed up, it was clear that someone wanted to restrict Chu Tian's attack power. You really are lucky. From the end of the main hall, a cold laugh came. You actually found such a powerful mechanical puppet that can even defeat the demons in the main hall. But it's a good thing you came here early, otherwise we might not have been able to deal with these troublesome monsters. This is bad. Chu Xinghe's group. Because of Chu Tian, Chu Xinghe's group of 3 had formed a temporary alliance. The 3 of them were already very strong, especially Chu Xinghe. He was close to the 5th awakened soul layer and had a very deep cultivation base. Even against a strong existence like the giant guard, he still had the ability to fight it. Now with Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang's help, the slaves were not a threat no matter how many of them there were. The 3 of them could easily kill a large group of them, and even against a terrifying monster like the giant guard, they still had the ability to protect themselves. It was because of this. The 3 of them smoothly arrived here. When they saw Chu Tian's group controlling the light mirrors and puppets, fighting against the main hall, they were all shocked by Chu Tian's godly skills. Even Chu Xinghe could not do this. After all, Not only did it require strength, it also tested one's intelligence. Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong wanted to sneak attack Chu Tian, but they were stopped by Chu Xinghe. The three of them had been watching from the side, waiting for this situation where both sides were heavily injured. Now, it was time to come out and reap the benefits. Nan Gongyun angrily shouted, "I was worried about not having a place to find you, but I never thought that you would come out to die. Since it's like this, then have a taste of this ant's strength." After saying this, she was going to control the damaged puppets to fight. Chu Tian knit his brows. "Nan Gong, wait." Chu Xinghe was not an idiot. On the contrary, he was very meticulous and calm. This kind of person was very hard to deal with. He had been watching from the side for a long time, so it was impossible for him to not know the puppet's battle strength. It was even more impossible for him to not understand the situation. If he wasn't 100% confident, with Chu Xinghe's personality, he would not have made a move. After this battle, Chu Tian's side had already suffered heavy losses. Even if there were a few puppets left, they would not be able to turn the situation around. The puppet's strength was close to a late-awakened soul realm true soul expert, but it was heavily injured and could not display its might. Then again, the three of them were all experienced people, so why would they risk their lives against the puppet? They could just go around the puppet and kill Chu Tian's group. With their strength, they could definitely do this. Other than that, if Chu Tian could find the puppet in the giant's labyrinth, then it was impossible for Chu Xinghe's group to not have any fortuitous encounters. So, they did not have 100% confidence. The three of them would not come out. If they fought now, they would lose without a doubt. Yunyao had clearly thought of this problem. She understood Chu Xinghe's strength better than Chu Tian and Nan Gongyun. Even without Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong, this person alone was enough to pose a large threat to them. His inherited sword art was too strong. He would definitely be able to kill all three of them before they could control their puppets. Chu Tian's mind raced and he immediately had an idea. "Since you have the ability to come here, that means you also have a map. I think you should know that this is the core area of the giant's labyrinth. Most of the treasures in the entire training ground are buried here." "So what?" Luo Xianglong coldly laughed and said, "We'll first take care of you pieces of trash and then we'll search for the treasures." Chu Tian said with a taunting face, "The method to open the treasures is related to the mirror and the difficulty is very high. You guys can't even open a trifling cube lock and you want to open the secret of the treasures? Isn't this just a pipe dream?" This was blatant contempt. The three young masters' hearts were filled with rage. However, what Chu Tian said was correct. If they couldn't even open a trifling cube lock, how could they open the legendary hidden treasures? Bullshit. Yi Tianlang hated Chu Tian to the bone and his killing intent soared as he roared, "So what if we can't obtain the treasures? Don't even think about stalling for time. I'll take your dog life right now." Pang! A golden treasure sword appeared in front of Yi Tianlang. Yi Tianlang's face sunk. "Chu Xinghe, what are you doing?" Chu Xinghe ignored Yi Tianlang and coldly asked, "You can open the treasures?" "I don't know, but if there's one of us that can open the treasures, then other than me, who else has this ability? In terms of knowledge and knowledge, no one could compare to Chu Tian." Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang had an impatient look on their faces. They did not care about the bullshit treasures at all. Killing Chu Tian, crippling him, and sending him out of the trial was more worth it than the illusory treasures. Who knew if he was just speaking nonsense to stall for time? Chu Xinghe asked, "How long?" Chu Tian replied, "Around an hour is enough." Chu Xinghe, can't you see? This sly bastard is stalling for time. Yi Tianlang firmly opposed, "We can't fall for this. No one has been able to open the treasures since ancient times, so why do you believe he can? It's just a mob, what is there to be afraid of?" Chu Xinghe gently flicked his finger and the golden treasure sword floated around him. "My sword is enough to kill them at any time, so I'll just give them a bit of time." Chu Xinghe's confidence was not without reason. The puppets that Chu Tian relied on were not much stronger than the armored guards, not to mention that they were heavily injured and their defenses had dropped. Even if he were to fight with the 3 puppets, Chu Xinghe was confident he would not lose. Not to mention that Chu Xinghe's Imperial Dragon Transformation sword art was ever-changing, it was enough to kill the 3 of them. Not to mention the fact that the 3 puppets were not even at the True Soul Realm. Even if they were at the True Soul Realm or even surpassed the True Soul Realm, what use was there in killing them? Chapter 183. Chu Tian and Chu Xinghe both had their own plans. Chu Tian needed to fight for a bit of time. As long as he had time to prepare, he might be able to create a counterattack. Chu Xinghe's strength was an undeniable fact. Even when they were in the same realm, he had almost killed Chu Tian with a single slash. That was the first time since Chu Tian came to this era that he had been heavily injured by someone in the same realm. Chu Xinghe was already this strong even when suppressing his cultivation. His true cultivation was close to the 5th awakened soul layer. This was an overwhelming advantage. As the head of the 4 young masters, even if the other 3 young masters worked together, they would not be able to defeat him. The only chance was to control the light mirror's power. If he could control the light mirror, then with the powerful light beam's power, he might be able to fight against Chu Xinghe. Chu Xinghe was a calm person, so how could he not see through Chu Tian's intentions? But he was too confident. Chu Tian would not have a chance. Several flying swords floated above Chu Tian's head. If there was even the slightest movement, he would be instantly killed. There was no chance at all. Chu Xinghe was different from Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang. He was an extreme martial artist. No matter how many grudges Chu Tian had with the Chu family, he could put them aside for now. Because compared to the family grudges, he was more interested in the hidden treasures of the trial space. If he could obtain the inheritance of the hidden treasures, he would have countless riches, resources, and cultivation techniques. Chu Xinghe's strength and influence would increase by another level. To a person like Chu Xinghe, family, friendship, and family glory were all nonsense. He would not hesitate to pay any price to become stronger. What he pursued was personal strength. Chu Tian was the only one who had the ability to open the hidden treasures. Chu Xinghe had to suppress his urge to cripple him. He ignored Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong's opposition and gave Chu Tian an hour to try. Nangong Yun and Yun Shao looked at each other. The atmosphere at the scene was terrifyingly heavy. Chu Tian's mediation had bought some time for the 2 of them to survive, but what use was it? It was impossible for them to defeat the other party. Could it be that they really had to open the treasure and let them have it? If that was the case, he might as well commit suicide now and get out of here. Chu Tian. What the hell are you thinking? Chu Xinghe was already strong enough. If he could obtain the treasures of the Tower of Trials, who in the Central State would be able to contend against him? Chu Tian turned a blind eye to the 2's hints and began to study the mirrors in the treasury. There were a total of more than 300 giant sperm mirrors. Although it looked messy and disorderly, it was actually distributed according to a certain pattern. Chu Tian believed that once he saw through these patterns, he would definitely be able to find a way to open the door to the treasury. What was the pattern? Light was the true key to the treasure vault. Chu Tian stood beside the main mirror and stared at the beam of light coming from the main mirror. After thinking about it for a few seconds, a light flashed in his mind. Could it be like this? Chu Tian lowered his head to look at the ground beneath him. There were many runes engraved on the floor of the main hall. These runes were very messy and there were many meaningless ancient runes and inscriptions mixed in, making it hard for people to find any meaningful information. However, Chu Tian could see it with a single glance. These runes seemed to be the elements of an array. Now that the source energy array's runes were on the ground, the use of the light mirror was clear. Light could be transmitted through the light mirror, forming an array diagram. The use of light was to complete an incomplete array. Chu Tian needed to adjust the angle of the light mirror and guide it to the correct state. After the light was refracted by the light mirror, it would form a perfect array diagram and runes. The array diagram and runes would combine to complete the array in the main hall. Using the mirror as a pen and the light as ink, this would form an inconceivable array. Light was the key to opening the door to the treasury. How to use it was a huge problem. Inconceivable, unimaginable. This method had never been heard of before. The designer of the trial space was not a simple person. This small trial field should have been used for young people to gain experience, so how could there be such a complex array? To be able to complete this kind of difficult array, one must have extraordinary attainments in the field of source energy arrays. It was almost impossible for a young person to do this. No wonder it was a 10,000-year-old problem. It was a bit challenging. I like it. Ever since Chu Tian came to this era, the problems he had encountered were too stupid. Now that he had finally encountered something that was a bit reasonable, how could he not be happy? But the more difficult it was, the higher the reward would be. Chu Tian opening the treasure vault was one thing, but obtaining the treasure was another. Chu Xinghe's group of 3 was eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. If he couldn't obtain the treasure vault and instead gave it to these 3 wolves, then Chu Tian's loss would be too great. Then he would stake it all. Chu Tian felt the floating treasure sword and suddenly steeled his heart. With this large array, he had 30% confidence that he could kill them in one move. It all depended on who was faster. When Chu Tian adjusted the light mirrors and prepared to attack, suddenly, there was an explosion coming from the left and right side of the giant's treasure vault. There was a large group of monsters that were wildly charging over. Chu Tian knit his brows. Go block them. I can't be disturbed when I'm breaking the array. Chu Xinghe's lips curled into a cold smile. How could he not see through Chu Tian's intention? Now that Chu Tian was purposely sending them away, it was just to prepare for himself. No problem. Let him prepare. As long as I open the treasure vault, with this person's strength, how could he fight me? Now was not the time for internal strife. If the monster tide came in, both sides would be finished. Because there were 2 entrances to the treasure vault, Chu Xinghe's group of 3 guarded one while Nangong Yun's group guarded the other with their puppets. Both sides had a tacit understanding. What is Chu Tian thinking? Yun Yao's face was filled with confusion. Even if we can't obtain the treasure vault, we can't let them obtain it. Nangong Yun walked while frowning, then said, Boss definitely has his own plans. I understand him. He won't do anything that he doesn't have a bit of confidence in. That's because he doesn't understand. Yun Yao's face became serious. He must have greatly underestimated his opponent. Forget about Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang, but Chu Xinghe is definitely not someone he can fight against. Is Chu Xinghe really that strong? Let's put it this way, if I were to fight against him and Chu Xinghe goes all out, I would lose in 1 move and die in 3 moves. Nangong Yun's body trembled. Die in 3 moves. No matter what, Yun Yao was on the same level as Chu Xinghe and she had a soul-contracting weapon, the Thunder Spirit Bead, but she couldn't even block 1 move from Chu Xinghe. Just how strong was he? The battle on both sides of the corridor had already begun. Chu Tian focused all of his energy on it. There were over 300 mirrors placed around him and there were several dozen on the walls and even the ceiling. Most of the mirrors could rotate 360 degrees. Most of the mirrors could even tilt 90 degrees. Each mirror had to be perfectly positioned and the angle of each mirror had to be perfect. They also had to ensure that the beams of light were in the correct order, passing through each mirror at once. There could be no mistakes and no mistakes. It was so harsh that it made one's hair stand up. This was the only way to completely open the treasure vault. What kind of difficult matter was this? It wasn't something a human could do. Chu Tian did not have much time, he had to finish it in 1-2 hours. This meant that he had to finish it in 1 go, he couldn't even make a single mistake. 1 wrong step. That meant he had to start all over again. Did Chu Tian have the time to do this? Not to mention if Chu Xinghe would give him the time, the monsters in the trial space would quickly flood this place. They would not give Chu Tian the time. There was no room for negotiation. Either he succeeded in one go, or he wasted all his previous efforts. When Chu Tian faced the complicated and profound arrangement of the mirrors, his heart filled with a surge of hot blood. He did not have the slightest bit of fear or waver, rather he felt a burst of excitement. There was no doubt about it. This was really a question that had been left unsolved for thousands of years. Although he did not know who buried it in the trial space, but from the ancient times until now, no one had been able to solve this problem. There must be some kind of heaven-shattering secret hidden in here. Don't disappoint me. Chu Tian lit his mind's lamp. His divine sense was like a ray of light, covering all directions, covering the several hundred mirrors. The position of each mirror, the arrangement, the angle, and every detail of the main hall, all of it was clearly displayed in Chu Tian's mind. This kind of large area without any blind spots was something that the mind's eye could not do. If Chu Tian had not obtained the mind's lamp's ability, he would not have been able to accurately control the mirrors and see through the mysteries of the main hall. However, the mind's lamp had his consciousness as the core and his spirit as the oil. Although the area it covered was very large, it consumed his divine sense very quickly. Although Chu Tian's divine sense had increased, he could not light the mind's lamp for a long time. Otherwise, if his divine sense continued to be consumed, it would cause irreparable damage to him. It's starting. Chu Tian used a quarter of an hour to observe the arrangement of the mirrors. The positions and angles of the 300 mirrors were all clear to him. At this time, Chu Tian released his divine sense. The little fox let out a few surprised cries. Several mirrors that were close began to move by themselves. It was as if there was an invisible hand that was moving them. The closest mirror had finished moving. The second row of mirrors began to be moved. The third row, the fourth row, the fifth row, Chu Tian used his divine sense to precisely control the light mirrors. He made the light mirrors go from messy and disorderly states to a certain order and angle, like a constellation that was tightly packed together. This process was not easy. Although Chu Tian's divine sense had reached the mind's lamp level, it was still weak. This was a very challenging task for him. When the arrangement of the light mirror was halfway done, the light mirror suddenly stopped. Pang! The mind's lamp was extinguished. Everything fell into darkness. Chu Tian found that his divine sense was not enough. When Chu Tian fell into a difficult situation, the little fox's gem-like eyes turned and it suddenly closed its eyes. A seal appeared on its forehead and an invisible energy suddenly appeared in Chu Tian's body. This energy is the little fox's divine sense. Chu Tian found it a bit hard to believe, this little fellow's divine sense isn't weak. Chu Tian did not know what method the little fellow had used to share its divine sense with Chu Tian, but this energy was something Chu Tian needed. The mind's lamp lit up again and his divine sense was released again, covering the main hall and adjusting the mirrors to the best angle. The large array was complete. Chu Tian revealed a faint smile and rubbed the little fox's head, "Many thanks." The little fox looked a bit tired, but it excitedly called out a few times, quickly opened the large array. This little fellow was also attracted. It was a bit impatient to see what kind of effect this never-before-seen array would have. Chu Tian nodded, "Don't be anxious. We'll begin now." Chu Tian walked to the purple gold-framed main mirror. Whether it would succeed or not depended on this one move. With a wave of his right hand, the main mirror slowly adjusted its angle. A dazzling beam of light shot out and landed on the mirror in front of him. It reflected the second mirror, the third mirror. How fast was the speed of light? The entire light mirror array, the entire giant's treasure house, was lit up in an instant. That sharp beam of light was like an array master's ink. Every time it reflected the light, the thickness, the angle, it was all accurate, reaching an unbelievably harsh level. Finally, A huge octagonal three-dimensional light formation suddenly descended on the ancient training field. The runes on the ground were filled with energy and floated into the air. Countless profound runes were attracted by a gravitational force and gathered at a single point, fusing together with the light. An ancient energy appeared in the main hall. It was like an ancient power that ruled over the world, but it was also an eternal power. It contained the laws of the world, making people tremble in awe. Chapter 184. The monsters that were swarming over felt a majestic power descend upon them. It was as if they had been intimidated by something and they all retreated like a tide. Why did the monsters all disappear? Did Chu Tian succeed? Let's go take a look. Nangong Yun and Yun Yao brought the two scarred puppets back to the main hall. With a single glance, they could see countless runes shooting towards the same spot like meteors. Like a spiderweb, they finally condensed into an incomparably large door of light. It was 20 feet tall, majestic, and majestic. It was a magnificent sight. Open the door to the treasure room. You have been awarded 200 trial points. The moment Chu Tian broke the light mirror array and opened the door to the treasure room, the number on the jade token in front of his chest began to rise, increasing by an entire 200 points. This was the highest reward he had received since entering the trial space. This meant that the difficulty of opening the treasure room was at least 10 times that of solving the cube's secret. Chu Tian had really succeeded. This secret that had been hidden in the central state tower for countless years had finally been solved by Chu Tian's hands. The two of them had not even entered the main hall yet. Chu Tian did not let out a sigh of relief because the real trouble had just begun. You guys quickly come in. Chu Tian saw Nangong Yun and Yun Yao come in and immediately waved his hand at them. Who would have thought that at this moment, 3 golden lights would suddenly appear in the main hall? Be careful. Chu Tian's warning came too late. 3 golden treasured swords seemed to appear out of thin air and instantly shot at the 3 of them. Yun Yao and Nangong Yun were shocked by the giant door and could not react for a moment. They were pierced by the swords and disappeared in a white light. Chu Tian was also hit by the sword, but when the sword hit his body, a jade talisman on his body shattered and turned into an energy barrier that repelled the golden sword. Chu Tian revealed a serious expression, damn. This was really strange. Chu Xinghe did not return to the main hall and could still summon flying swords to attack. At that time, Nangong Yun and Yun Yao were not prepared, so they were directly killed. Chu Tian had only just completed the formation and had not had time to defend, so he was hit by the sword. Fortunately, he had a protective talisman that he had obtained from the maze, which was able to block the attack. Otherwise, Chu Tian would have been eliminated. What, are you surprised? Chu Xinghe's cold voice came from the sword floating in the air, my sword is my heart. Although I left behind 3 swords. I can observe the situation in the main hall through these 3 swords. You can only blame yourselves for being too careless. Despicable indeed. However, one had to admit that he had some skills. Chu Tian was so focused on setting up the formation that he did not notice the few swords that Chu Xinghe had left in the hall. Who knew that these swords would become Chu Xinghe's eyes? Nangong Yun's cultivation was weak and could not help much, but the puppet's strength could not be underestimated. Yun Yao's cultivation was similar to Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlong's, so she could have been a strong helper. Now, she had been killed by Chu Xinghe's sneak attack. This meant that Chu Tian had to face these 3 strong enemies alone. Ha, 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 ha. The heavens are helping me. At this time, Luo Xianglong walked back with a face of pleasant surprise. He excitedly laughed into the sky. There was a legend about the Tower of Trial in Central State City. The Tower of Trial hid a powerful inheritance that was enough for a person to spend for a lifetime. Whoever could solve the 10,000-year problem of the Tower of Trial would be able to obtain this inheritance. How many years had it been? Even if people found this problem, they could not solve it. Who would have thought that it would be solved by a little brat like Chu Tian today? How could Luo Xianglong not be happy? Yi Tianlang's eyes also revealed a strong greed. As long as he could obtain the ancient treasure hidden in the Tower of Trial, it would not be in vain for him to endure this humiliation for so long. Chu Xinghe was still as silent as ice. His hand formed a sword and the 3 swords returned to his side, entering his body. When he opened his eyes, a pair of sharp, pitch-black eyes hid a strong murderous intent. Actually, compared to Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang's joy, Chu Xinghe was more afraid, deeply afraid. Chu Xinghe had seen the entire process of Chu Tian's formation. This young man was too terrifying and his existence would become a threat sooner or later. His light could even overshadow Chu Xinghe. Chu Xinghe was insufferably arrogant. How could he tolerate the existence of a young man that was better than him? Even if he could not kill anyone in the secret realm, he could at least cripple them and ruin their future. I really don't know if I should say your luck is good or bad. Luo Xianglong recovered from his initial surprise and looked at Chu Tian with a taunting gaze. I actually have to thank the defensive jade talisman on you. If it wasn't for the fact that it blocked Chu Xinghe's attack, wouldn't it be too easy on you? You opened the door to the treasury for us, but now you have no value. Yi Tianlang coldly said, now let's settle our debts. Since it's like this, what's the point of saying so much? Chu Tian was not stupid enough to think that he could convince the 3 of them to share the treasure with him. His eyes flashed a few times and he calmly said, do you want to come one by one or do you want to come together? Even at death's door, he still dared to be this arrogant. He was facing 3 of the Central State 4 young masters. Any one of them was a top-tier character in Central State, not to mention facing 3 of them at the same time. Since you have a big grudge, then leave it to Prince Tianlang to deal with. Many thanks. Yi Tianlang revealed a look of joy. He had waited for this chance for too long. Without another word, Yi Tianlang used his family's monster wolf transformation and turned into a man-wolf. His 4 limbs stepped on the ground. Accept your death. Chu Tian gave a cold laugh and let out a sigh of relief in his heart. Chu Xinghe had a deep mind. In truth, he did not want to share the treasure with Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang, so he deliberately said this. Otherwise, with Chu Xinghe's ability, how could he not see that Yi Tianlang would only die if he charged forward now? That's good. If they worked together. Chu Tian did not have a high chance of winning, but now he had a chance. You want to cripple me? Why don't you ask my puppet if it agrees? The puppet behind Chu Tian took a step forward and sent a punch at Yi Tianlang. Yi Tianlang was not an ordinary person. He suddenly jumped in the air and used the air as a stepping board to retreat 4-5 meters away, dodging the puppet's destructive punch. Insignificant tricks, do you think this kind of thing can stop me? Not bad. The reason the puppet could be successful in the labyrinth was because of the low intelligence of the monster. With Yi Tianlang's rich battle experience, he would not fight the puppet head-on. As long as he went around the puppet and attacked Chu Tian, it would be fine. Even if he could not beat the puppet, killing Chu Tian was as easy as flipping his hand. Who would have thought that Chu Tian would reveal a strange smile? You're wrong about this. A giant palm slapped at Yi Tianlang from behind. Yi Tianlang was shocked. A sneak attack. When he reacted, it was already too late. This palm heavily hit Yi Tianlang's body, directly shattering his protective spirit energy and slapped him heavily in front of Chu Tian. The second puppet. This guy controlled 2 puppets. It turned out that while Chu Tian controlled his puppet to temporarily force Yi Tianlang to retreat, he released his divine sense and controlled the giant's heart left behind by Nangong Yun. At the same time, he controlled Nangong Yun's puppet to slap Yi Tianlang. How powerful was the puppet? Even if Yi Tianlang was not seriously injured to death, he temporarily lost his defense. The puppet's heart in Chu Tian's hand flashed. The puppet in front of him clenched its hands and smashed down heavily like a pendulum. Yi Tianlang roared unwillingly and directly turned into a white light and disappeared. The stray dog young master only has this much ability. Chu Tian took control of the puppets that Yunyao had left behind. The 3 puppets stood in a row in front of him, assuming a defensive stance. Chu Xinghe was as calm as water, as if he had already guessed this result. Luo Xianglong had a look of surprise. How is this possible? He can control multiple puppets at the same time. Could his spiritual energy be split? This is the power of his divine sense. Chu Xinghe coldly said, his divine sense has already surpassed the mind's eye realm, so he can leave his body and control the puppets from afar. What? Surpassed the mind's eye realm? This was unheard of. Chu Xinghe then said, Brother Luo, do you have confidence? Luo Xianglong quickly calmed down, that trashy Tianlang really can't do anything. Since it's like this, I'll do it. Chu Xinghe watched as Luo Xianglong walked out and a cold taunt flashed in his eyes. Chu Tian stood in the center of the light mirror array with the 3 puppets' hearts revolving around him. The 3 scarred puppets stood in front of him as he calmly said, Do you also want to test the strength of the puppets? Puppets? Luo Xianglong gave a proud laugh as he took out a talisman that released a mysterious power. He placed it on his body as he angrily roared, They're just toys. The talisman suddenly released a strong light. Luo Xianglong turned into a 20-meter tall giant, even larger than the giant puppets. With a single punch, one of the giant puppets was smashed to pieces. Then, with lightning speed, he kicked the other giant puppet, sending it flying to the corner of the wall. Finally, his 2 arms came out like 2 dragons coming out of the sea, directly shattering the chest of the last puppet. Wild. Ruthless. The 3 puppets walked over, but their bodies were already broken and their defensive runes were no longer effective. Luo Xianglong had used a transformation talisman to increase his battle strength by a large amount. Combined with the Luo family's terrifying close combat cultivation technique, the 3 puppets did not even have a chance to fight back as they were torn apart by Luo Xianglong. As expected. They also had some gains in the giant's labyrinth. Luo Xianglong had used the talisman to turn into a giant, increasing his battle strength by 5-6 times, reaching the true soul realm. His battle strength far surpassed the puppets. This also meant that his pure battle strength was not inferior to the puppets. The most important thing was that compared to the puppets that did not have any intelligence, Luo Xianglong had cultivation techniques and martial arts. This was definitely very terrifying. Without these toys. Luo Xianglong's voice became deep and terrifying as he roared out word by word, I'll be able to crush your bones one by one. To thank you for opening the treasure for me, my movements will be a bit faster. One of us will definitely obtain the treasure. Chu Tian watched the 3 puppets being destroyed, but he remained calm the entire time. He did not even blink, but that person will not be you. Chu Tian gently waved his hand. A beam of light shined from the main mirror. Luo Xianglong's expression changed, could it be? He seemed to realize something and wanted to escape, but it was too late. Was there anything in this world that was faster than light? When the beam of light shined on the mirror, it was reflected 30-40 times. Finally it turned into an incomparably strong energy that slammed into the giant that Luo Xianglong had turned into. No! Luo Xianglong gave a pitiful cry as he was pushed to the end of the hall. The beam of light pierced through his chest. A white light flashed. Luo Xianglong was also sent out of the trial space. Chu Tian acted like he had done something insignificant as his eyes fell onto Chu Xinghe. His calm and gentle attitude was like he was looking at an old friend, Heavenly Sword young master, you've made 2 mistakes. The first is that you shouldn't have hurt the people by my side and the second is that you shouldn't have sent your teammates to their deaths. Chu Xinghe coldly said, so what? Chu Tian replied, I'll personally kill you. Actually I could have sent you out from the beginning, but I didn't do that. Instead, I let you go so that I could open this treasure. Chu Xinghe's laughter was as deep and terrifying as an owl's. Your biggest mistake is underestimating my strength. Chu Xinghe formed a sword seal. The golden sword suddenly split into 2, 2 into 4. Finally it split into 16 swords that surrounded Chu Xinghe's body at a high speed, reaching a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. You think you can defeat me? Chu Xinghe's body slowly floated into the air. He was like a peerless sword god, his sharp eyes filled with arrogance. His cold and emotionless voice filled the hall, as sharp as a sword. I'll let you know how stupid that thought is. Chu Tian gave a laugh. I don't think so. Chapter 185. The 16 golden swords were exactly the same in terms of size, shape, and size. The edge of every single sword was smooth like a mirror and inscribed with talisman markings that were like WYRMS, and numerous monstrous sword chi surged out like a storm that was brewing. You overestimate yourself. Chu Xinghe's eyes flashed. You're just a firefly, yet you dare to compete with the sun and moon. The 16 swords that were filled with energy spread out behind him like a peacock spreading its tail. They shone with a golden light and were extremely beautiful. Then, they tore through the void at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. The moment each sword fell, they transformed into numerous waves of golden sword chi. At first glance, they were densely packed. It was as if an unstoppable storm was pressing down on them. Blade Storm. This set of ancient sword techniques was ever-changing and unpredictable. Taking someone's head from 1,000 miles away was as easy as taking something out of one's pocket. That sharp whistle seemed to be able to tear apart one's eardrums. That threatening sword chi seemed to be able to tear apart the entire space. What a terrifying attack! As expected of Chu Xinghe. His attack was as powerful as a thunderbolt. Shwa! 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 The light rays were like threads weaving through the invisible hands, instantly forming a huge protective shield. The instant the 10,000 swords descended, it actually blocked that terrifying attack. Boom! The main hall shook. The sword chi shattered one after another and shot into the pillars of the hall, leaving deep marks on them. Do you think I'm stupid enough to help you open the treasury? Chu Tian stood in the center of the light mirror formation unscathed. He was surrounded by crisscrossing light rays. Right now, all the mirrors in the formation are under my control. No matter how powerful your sword technique is, what can you do to me? Right now, the entire space was divided into coordinates in Chu Tian's eyes. No matter where Chu Xinghe appeared, no matter where he attacked, he would be able to block an attack with 100% accuracy. Chu Tian had already controlled all the light mirrors when he was setting up the formation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to open the door to the treasury. Humph. Stubborn duck. You're just borrowing external strength. How many places can you defend at the same time? Chu Xinghe made another move. 32 Wandering Dragons Formation. The instant the 16 flying swords were repelled, light flashed and turned into 32 swords. The densely packed sword images covered the entire light mirror formation, doubling the attack density. Hundreds and thousands of sword chi flew together. The scene was like a tsunami driven by a storm, bombarding a lone island in a frenzy. Dozens of dazzling rays of light shot out from the light mirror array at the same time, weaving into a crisscrossing cage that was constantly changing. No matter which angle he attacked from, he couldn't hurt Chu Tian at all. For Chu Tian, the trajectories of those light rays were hard to grasp, but he could control them as he pleased to attack or defend. He had never missed once, and the flying swords that came to attack him were all bounced off. He couldn't just passively take a beating. If one defended for too long, there would definitely be openings. Therefore, it was better to take the initiative to attack. Chu Tian waved his hand to control the main mirror. The light shot forward and bounced several times. In the blink of an eye, it rushed out of the array and turned into a spear of light. It swept across the ground, leaving a long, molten mark. Chu Xinghe dodged it in an instant. He dodged it. It was impossible for Chu Xinghe to be faster than light, unless he dodged before attacking. He was able to accurately determine the source of the attack from the countless light mirrors. This kind of insight was not something the naked eye could possess, so it was very likely that he had opened his mind's eye. So what if you have a mind's eye? Chu Tian slapped the light mirror and the light beam swept across several mirrors. The light beam split into several groups and constantly reflected in the light mirrors, turning into 4-5 concentrated attacks that shot out at the same time. If you have the ability, then dodge it. Chu Xinghe had a mind's eye, but Chu Tian also had a mind's eye. Chu Tian knew that the mind's eye's insight had its limits. Moreover, the mind's eye's specialty was to concentrate one's divine sense. It could not be like the mind's lantern that could radiate. When several light beams were shot out at the same time, even if Chu Xinghe had the mind's eye, he would not be able to see through it. Who knew that Chu Xinghe had already made preparations? Dragon Sword Shield. Those golden treasured swords stabbed into the ground in front of Chu Xinghe, forming an airtight giant shield. The moment the light beam hit it, the outer layer of the treasured swords melted. The fierce strength pushed the giant shield forward, finally piercing through with a peng sound. Countless melted swords filled the sky. Chu Xinghe was no longer behind the shield. The sword shield had bought him a bit of time, but with Chu Xinghe's cultivation base, he could safely tear it apart. 64 Roaming Dragon Sword Array. The long cry of a flood dragon filled the main hall. 64 swords reformed and floated in the air, densely packed together. He released the power of his source spirit, filling each sword with the power of a flood dragon. The 64 swords turned into 64 golden flood dragons that brandished their fangs and claws. They were agile and their might increased, no longer attacking in a straight line like before. Chu Xinghe was really hard to deal with. His strength seemed to be endless. Although his cultivation base was only at the peak 4th body refinement layer, this kind of battle strength was enough to make the older generation members of Central State City blush with shame. Chu Xinghe stood on the golden flood dragon and was surrounded by countless golden flood dragons. His body was filled with light and his aura was like the sun in the sky. He was as dignified as a deity and his eyes were cold and terrifying. Do you think a light mirror formation can stop me? I will destroy this array and leave the protection. I want to see if you can block a single attack from me. Chu Xinghe's voice was filled with confidence. He did not have any patience left. 63 golden flood dragons received the order, and like sharks smelling blood, they all lunged at the light mirror array. These golden flood dragons were several times more ferocious than the flying swords from before, and a weaker light beam could not even send them flying in one hit. Chu Xinghe wanted to destroy the array with brute force. Once they left the light mirror array, Chu Tian would not be able to fight against Yi Tianlang, not to mention the head of the 4 young masters, Chu Xinghe. Chu Tian released his divine sense and controlled several light mirrors. The light mirrors were penetrated by Chu Tian's divine sense and began to tremble. Rays of light swept out in an arc and the light mirror array was filled with light. Several rays of light passed through the different mirrors and finally shot into the sky. The golden flood dragons were bombarded by the rays of light and were sent back into the air one by one. Chu Xinghe controlled them with a dark expression. The wandering flood dragons attacked again and again. Chu Tian was as stable as Mount Tai. The mind's lantern's range was reduced and it covered an area of several dozen feet. It increased the divine sense in that area and allowed him to lock onto the position of each flood dragon. The angle and position of each mirror. The speed and attack position of each golden flood dragon. All of this was seen by Chu Tian's divine sense. He was multitasking as he controlled the light mirror array. The rays of light continued to shoot out from the array and the beams of light continued to block the golden flood dragons, making it hard for Chu Xinghe to break through. Peng! The golden light and the golden flood dragons collided. Large amounts of golden energy exploded in the air. Each attack and collision was very shocking. It was as if even the main hall was shaking. Chu Tian's calculation ability was too terrifying, basically being able to calculate everything. Using the light mirror array's powerful and complex system, as well as the incomparable speed and accuracy of the light beams, he was able to block the several dozen raging flood dragons. The heavenly sword young master's sword art is only at this level. When Chu Xinghe heard Chu Tian's provocation, the killing intent in his eyes became even thicker. He never thought that a person that wasn't even in the illustrious soul realm would be able to last this long under the might of his imperial flood dragon sword art. It had to be known. Even if it was a fifth awakened soul layer cultivator, when facing Chu Xinghe's sword array, they would not be able to last more than 10 breaths of time. But this powerful sword array could not take down this damn fellow. He was just relying on this large array. Chu Xinghe's sword, there was nothing it couldn't break and nothing it couldn't resist. How could it be restrained by an array controlled by a trivial second awakened soul layer cultivator? Divine Flood Dragon Descent. Over 60 golden flood dragons soared into the sky and gathered above Chu Tian's head. Finally they all fell down at the same time, releasing an aura that was like a river flowing backwards. Could it be that he wanted to stake it all on this one throw? Chu Tian's right hand patted the main mirror beside him and the light fell onto the surrounding mirrors. After countless refractions, it formed a large net of light that instantly blocked the falling flood dragons. Break for me. With a loud roar, the golden flood dragons were blown away one by one and returned to their original form. Chu Xinghe urged the golden flood dragon under his feet to attack. It turned into a golden light and instantly shot at Chu Tian. But halfway there, a beam of light swept over. Chu Xinghe quickly raised his sword to block it. The terrifying power directly broke the treasured sword and threw him into the air. It's my turn. The beam of light was reflected several dozen times. As the number of reflections increased, not only did it increase the power of the beam, it also allowed him to escape from Chu Xinghe's mind's eye, making it hard for him to predict. Fast. Too fast. This was still light. What in this world could be faster than light? The golden light was like a giant spear that pierced through Chu Xinghe's chest. This attack was very strong. Even with Chu Xinghe's protective spirit energy, he could not block it. His chest was pierced through like a piece of paper and his body was sent flying several dozen meters before finally falling to the ground. Was he killed? If that was the case, then the famous Chu Xinghe was just an undeserved reputation. After Chu Xinghe was pierced by the light, the golden flying swords that filled the sky did not fall. Instead, they gathered together with a surge of energy. Chu Tian's expression changed slightly. The sword in the center flashed and turned into Chu Xinghe's appearance. He wore a white jade crown on his head and his green robes fluttered in the wind. His hands formed a sword seal and his posture was cold and arrogant. It was as if a sword immortal had descended to the world. That sharp light could not be looked at directly. Chu Tian looked at Chu Xinghe who had just been hit. Where was Chu Xinghe's body? All that was left was a broken sword. A diversionary tactic. He fell into a trap. The flood dragon's attack was just a feint. Chu Xinghe took advantage of the fact that Chu Tian's attention was diverted and instantly swapped places with the flood dragon under his feet. He used some secret technique to turn himself into the golden flood dragon's sword and the golden flood dragon's sword into his appearance. When the flood dragon's attack failed, Chu Xinghe used the golden flood dragon under his feet to feint an attack. His goal was to send himself to Chu Tian's side. Chu Tian concentrated his energy on the substitute. As for a mere flying sword, he casually dealt with it and did not unleash a thunderous attack. At this time, Chu Xinghe was already above Chu Tian. Chu Xinghe had been using his mind's eye to observe. He discovered that this position was the blind spot of most of the light mirrors. Although Chu Tian could use his divine sense to move the light mirrors, as long as Chu Xinghe's speed was fast enough, he could definitely kill him before Chu Tian could. 10,000 flood dragons enter the body. One with the sword. Dozens of swords turned into golden light and drilled into Chu Xinghe's body. At this moment, Chu Xinghe had become one with the sword. He was the sword, and the sword was him. All the energy was concentrated on his body. He formed a sword art with both hands and a huge sword light soared into the sky from his right hand. Boom! A huge hole appeared in the ceiling. Soul sword technique. Cutting heaven style. The power of this sword was too terrifying. Chu Xinghe was indeed worthy of being a genius of the Chu family. He had actually combined the Imperial Sword transformation into Flood Dragon Sword technique with the Chu family's inherited Soul Sword technique. First, he used the strongest move of the Imperial Sword technique to become one with the sword. Then, he used his body as a sword and used the Cutting Heaven style. The Cutting Heaven style was the strongest move of the Soul Sword technique. Chu Xinghe himself already had the strength to challenge those above him. Not to mention that he was using it without holding back. The might of this sword was hard to imagine. Even if he was facing a sixth awakened soul layer cultivator, he would still have a chance of killing them with a single slash. Even a true soul realm expert would be heavily injured if they were to block this attack. This was Chu Xinghe, the #1 genius of Central State City. The sword chi that soared into the sky was several dozen feet long. Before it even came down, the pressure already made it so that Chu Tian could not stand straight. The surrounding light mirrors all changed directions and could not be controlled by Chu Tian at all. Hong! The sword chi was like a 10,000-foot-long flood as it flew out. There was only a deep sword mark left behind. The center of the main hall was several dozen feet long. The ancient array that was 10 times harder than iron was actually split apart, and the main mirror that was protected by the mysterious power was also shattered. The entire light mirror array lost its color. This slash had actually destroyed the array. How could Chu Tian's mortal body have a complete corpse? It seemed like the difference in strength between the two sides was too large. The one who would be defeated in the end would still be Chu Tian. Chu Xinghe's face turned pale. Looking at the destroyed main hall in front of him, that cold-as-ice face finally revealed a cold smile of ridicule. Did I overestimate him in the end? To be able to force me to use my trump card against this kind of person, I've made him lose too beautifully. But, this was Chu Xinghe's style. Chu Xinghe had a cold and overbearing personality. Since Chu Tian thought that he could defeat him with a single light mirror array, then Chu Xinghe would destroy him along with the array. The image of his irresistible strength was firmly planted in the depths of Chu Tian's heart. It would become a hard mountain to cross on his cultivation path, a heart demon that he could never overcome. This cultivation path would be hard to take even a single step forward. Chu Xinghe's goal would be achieved. Chu Xinghe released the man and sword union technique and put the sword back into the sheath. Suddenly, he felt a strange sharp energy gathering behind him. This is bad. The sword that had been sheathed once again flew into the sky. But before he could use his sword art, a beautiful burning sword glow pierced through Chu Xinghe's chest and came out from his back. Netherworld Raging Flame Slash. Chu Xinghe revealed a look of shock. The young man was wearing a simple robe and there was not a single wound on his body. He was standing in front of him completely unharmed. On that young face, there was a cold smile of ridicule. The burning sword in his hand had pierced through his body and the surging netherworld flames were being poured into his limbs. No. Impossible. Chu Xinghe did not believe it no matter what. How could Chu Tian have survived? That was an attack that even a peak illustrious soul realm expert would find hard to block. How could Chu Tian not be injured at all? The thing that Chu Xinghe could not accept the most was that his sword could not kill Chu Tian, but rather he had been killed by Chu Tian's sword. I am a man of my word. I said that I would personally kill you, so I will personally kill you. Chu Tian emphasized the word, personally. This was very harsh on Chu Xinghe's ears. Whether you believe it or not, you have already lost. The so-called Heavenly Sword young master is just a joke. When the raging flame slash stabbed into Chu Xinghe did not have the ability to resist at all because Chu Xinghe had released all his spirit energy in that full-strength slash. When his meridians were not filled with spirit energy, he was suddenly stabbed by this wild slash and the netherworld ghost flame filled his body. That sharp netherworld sword had pierced through his heart. Even with Chu Xinghe's strength, there was nothing he could do. Chu Tian waved his right hand and the netherworld sword returned to its sheath. Leaving behind a simple robe fluttering in the wind, he walked towards the giant door without even looking back. A mass of gray fog appeared and the little white fox appeared on his shoulder. This fox had a taunting smile as it looked at Chu Xinghe and even made a face at him. Finally, Chu Tian walked through the door. The giant door to the treasure room slowly closed and then disappeared from the main hall. No! Chu Xinghe gave a loud roar and the netherworld flame came out of his body in the next second, instantly swallowing Chu Xinghe's body. Then the jade token on his chest released a strong light and a strong force sent him out of the trial tower. Lost! The heavenly sword young master had lost. Central State's #1 Chu Xinghe had lost. No matter how he thought about it, he could not understand how Chu Tian did it. There had never been a person that could make him feel this kind of incomparable shame and anger, as well as a trembling from his soul. Chapter 186. Central State City, Ancient Ruins, next to the Central State Trial Tower. The sky gradually darkened and the stars lit up the night sky. The earth was silent and the white jade trial tower silently stood in the ruins. It seemed like it had remained the same for thousands of years, not changing at all. The 4 great families had already set up 4 camps around the Central State Tower. The guards of the various families were tightly guarding the area. A tense and apprehensive atmosphere filled the air above the camp. In this era where there was no new and old, the ancient ruins were everywhere. Among the countless hidden treasures, the trial tower was the least dangerous. It was not like the 10,000 corpse ancient tomb where one's cultivation base was sealed, and it was not as dangerous as the other forbidden secret realms. So, the death rate of the participants was very low. At least in the several hundred years since the founding of Central State City, there had never been a precedent of someone dying in the trial tower. Although it was like this, it did not mean that the trial tower was completely safe. The main reason for the low mortality rate in the Tower of Trial was that the trial's laws protected the trial taker. When a trial taker received a certain amount of damage in the Tower of Trial, the trial taker would automatically remove the damage and teleport them out of the Tower of Trial. Thus, to a large extent, the trial taker's life was guaranteed. What was calculated here was instant fatal damage. What if the accumulated damage caused the participant to be seriously injured, but it did not reach the death rate of the trial law? The situation would be different. Even if the participant was eliminated, they would still be in a seriously injured state. Or would the trial law make a mistake? What if the damage was lethal and they didn't have time to react? Would the trial taker die as a result? So even if there was no direct death, there had been 1 or 2 serious injuries that had been sent out of the trial tower. In the end, the injuries had left behind side effects, causing one's cultivation base to drop. The gains did not make up for the losses. The 4 great families did not dare slack off for even a second. The elites of the families were stationed around the Central State Tower and they had prepared medicine masters and healers. If something happened to their children in the trial tower, they would be able to react as soon as possible. Xiong Wuji was wearing a suit of general armor as he guarded the ruins. His job was to maintain order. The 4 great families did not get along, so if there was any conflict, the military would intervene. Xiong Wuji revealed a hint of a smile. This year's trial taker's strength is polarized, but after more than 10 hours, not a single one has been eliminated. This is really unexpected. Yeah. A deputy general said strangely, if it was in the past, I'm afraid more than half of them would have been eliminated. The disparity in strength between the trial takers this year was too great. The 4 people led by Chu Xinghe were all illustrious Soul Realm experts. Chu Tian, Nangong Yun, Yun Shao, and the others were all at the second awakened soul layer. Chu Xinghe was the most outstanding among them. Even if the others joined forces, they might not be able to defeat him. However, due to the existence of the powerful Chu Xinghe, the difficulty of the trial would be greatly increased, and it would be stricter than before. No matter how quick-witted Chu Tian was, under such a harsh trial environment, he should have been eliminated, right? The four great clans were also very confused. Especially the Chu, Luo, and Yi families. What was going on? They actually let that fellow Chu Tian stay in the trial tower for this long? Didn't they already tell them to cripple Chu Tian and throw him out as soon as they entered the tower? Yun Tianhe, Qin Bingyu, and the others were all a bit nervous. Yun Tianhe had made an optimistic estimate. For a burden like Yun Xiao, it would be good if he could survive for 4-5 hours. If Yun Yao was stable, she would be able to last 15 to 20 hours. As for Chu Tian, this brat had too many variables, so it was hard to evaluate him. It had already been over 10 hours. Why hadn't a single person come out? Could something have happened? Yun Tianhe's heart was a bit anxious. The Yun family was under a lot of pressure this time. Even if Yun Yao had the Thunder Spirit Bead to increase her strength, if the Chu, Luo, and Yi young masters worked together, Yun Yao would not be able to fight back. Not to mention that waste Yun Xiao. Chen Bingyu also tightly knit her brows. She was not only Chu Tian's follower, she was also Chu Tian's worshipper. Moreover, Chu Tian was her life-saving straw. Ka, ka. Chen Bingyu's fists tightened and a faint killing intent began to fill the air. If the Chu, Luo, and Yi families dared to do anything to Chu Tian, she would not let these fellows go. Everyone had their own thoughts as another 2 hours passed. The trial tower flashed with light and began to slightly shake. Someone's coming out. Everyone was filled with excitement. Who could it be? The top of the central state tower released a beam of light and several ancient runes appeared at the top of the tower. It was an ancient number, 188 points. 188 points? This kind of result was already considered a very, very good result. A white-robed youth was sent flying out of the door and slammed into the ground. The Yun family members revealed looks of joy. Seeing a ghost, wasn't this their family's young master Yun Xiao? Everyone else was stunned. The playboy Yun Xiao, who had been treated as a waste, had actually obtained 188 points. What was going on? He must have cheated. The Yun family members were filled with excitement. This was truly a pleasant surprise. They could finally hold their heads up high. Yun Xiao did not have any problems. He had been sent flying out of the trial space and did not suffer any torture. He stood up and began to curse, "Fuck. Those monsters are too abnormal. They actually tried to sneak attack father. I don't accept this. I don't accept this." Yun Tianhe quickly asked, "What is the situation in the trial tower right now?" "Boss, old sister, and elder sister are all together. When I came out, they should have been fine. But they are being held back by a group of terrifying demons, and no matter what kind of attack they use, the situation is not good." Yun Tianhe tightly knit his brows. The three great families were secretly delighted. It would be best if they were all eliminated at once. Yun Xiao took out the things he had exchanged and gave them to his grandfather. "My harvest in the trial tower is very large. These are all things I exchanged for with points, and there are several martial arts suitable for the Yun family. For example, this Wild Thunder Collapse can instantly kill most of our family's martial arts, and this Thunder Shadow Step is a top-quality movement technique. 4-5 Thunder Attributed Cultivation Techniques. 3 half-step Saint Grade Herbs. 2 bottles of pills that could increase one's cultivation." The things that Yun Xiao brought out from the trial tower were not ordinary, they were all top-quality items. It was enough to increase the Yun family's strength by a large amount. The Chu, Luo, and Yi families all revealed looks of jealousy. Yun Xiao, that waste, had obtained such a good result, then Yun Yao's score would be even higher. The Yun family had 2 people participating in the trial. They had truly picked up a large bargain. Good. Good. Yun Tianhe's old chest was filled with joy. This good-for-nothing grandson of his had finally made a contribution to the family. From now on, no one would dare laugh at him behind his back. "You've done well. Go and rest." In the end, in less than a quarter of an hour, the Central State Tower shook again and Lin Mu and Fang Han were kicked out. One had 195 points. One had 190 points. Everyone's eyes turned red. Damn, this is really strange. These two mercenaries did not have any background, they did not have any support, they only obtained the trial qualifications because of luck. They never thought that these two fellows would not only obtain the trial qualifications, they would also obtain such a high score. It would be more than enough to exchange for a sacred herb. These two fellows had completely turned over. The most angry ones were the Chu, Luo, and Yi families. The spots on these people were originally theirs. If these pieces of trash could obtain such a high score, how could the geniuses of the Chu, Luo, and Yi families' results be low? Yun Zhao's face was filled with wonder. You guys were also killed? Lin Mu and Fang Han gave a sigh. That demon was too strong, we couldn't do anything. We were killed when we weren't careful. Yun Tianhe's heart sank. Although he did not know what had happened in the trial tower, it was not hard to see from their expressions that Chu Tian had fallen into a very serious situation. There were several hundred of them. Physical attacks and energy attacks were ineffective. Their destructive might could easily tear through an illustrious Soul Realm expert's defenses. Under the attacks of these terrifying monsters, how could they not be eliminated? The Central State Tower shook again. 276 points. Everyone was in an uproar. This high score. It had almost broken the highest record in Central State City. The one who was sent out this time was Feng Kaidai. She also had a face filled with regret, but she was even more depressed. This was because Feng Kaidai was different from the other three. Chu Tian had already found a way to deal with the demons, but when Feng Kaidai used the light mirror, she had accidentally rebounded and killed herself. How could she not be depressed? Feng Kaidai was depressed, but before she was eliminated, she had killed quite a few demons, so her score was higher than the other three by a large amount. Because of this experience, there were many pleasant surprises. Because the harvest far surpassed their expectations. Each one is better than the last. The four great families felt their blood boil. With this speed and trend, wouldn't the people that came out later have higher scores? Yun Tianhe asked about it and couldn't help slapping the table. Good brat, he really is something. He was actually able to find the weakness of these demons at this critical moment. It seems like they still have hope. The Yun family had two challengers. Just Yun Shao alone had brought back several precious thunder-attributed cultivation techniques and several half-step Saint Great herbs for the Yun family. Then how would Yun Yao perform? 1 hour. Hung. The light from the trial tower filled the sky and two numbers appeared. 318 points. 331 points. Nangong Yun and Yun Yao were sent out. Everyone was completely shocked. It broke past 300. It actually broke past 300. The Yun family was filled with excitement. A new record. A new record had been broken. Yun Yao had obtained a terrifying score of 331 points. The highest score in the history of Central State City was less than 300 points. Yun Yao had completely broken the Central State record for several hundred years. This was truly a miraculous result. Nangong Yun exchanged for a high-quality level 2 sacred herb, 10,000-year-old phoenix ginseng. This medicine could help her break through to the illustrious soul realm in the future. She also exchanged for a large amount of precious cultivation techniques and equipment. Her harvest could be considered very rich. Yun Yao also exchanged for a good sacred herb to help her break through to the fifth awakened soul layer in the future. She also exchanged for a few recipes, ancient books, and cultivation techniques to contribute to the family. Who said the Yun family was weak? The Yun family was about to counterattack. When the Yun family was cheering, the Chu, Luo, and Yi families all had gloomy expressions. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the challengers to obtain such a high score. Obtaining over 100 points was already a good result, so these people must have had a fortuitous encounter in the trial space. Damn it! How could it be like this? At this time, Nangong Yun and Yunyao had angry expressions on their faces. Chu Xinghe is a despicable person. He actually launched a sneak attack on us. Everyone was stunned. Yun Tianhe quickly asked, what happened? Yunyao did not even have time to speak before Nangong Yun angrily shouted, Chu Xinghe took advantage of us being unprepared and suddenly launched a sneak attack on us. We were both killed by Chu Xinghe. Otherwise we would have obtained more points. Yunyao also had an angry expression. This method was too despicable. It was fine if they were defeated in a direct confrontation, but that bastard Chu Xinghe used a sneak attack on them. When Yun Tianhe heard this, he revealed a shocked expression. You're saying that Chu Tian is still inside? Moreover, he is fighting against Chu Xinghe, Luo Xianglong, and Yi Tianlang by himself? Boss has a protective talisman that can block one attack, so Chu Xinghe's sneak attack shouldn't have been able to kill him. In an instant, Yun Tianhe's face turned white. Now it was the Chu, Luo, and Yi family's turn to reveal a fiendish smile. If Chu Tian fought against the three of them by himself, even if one used there but to think, they would know what would happen. Feng Kaidai, Yun Xiao, and the others' expressions all changed. Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong did not just want to kill Chu Tian, they wanted to cripple Chu Tian to vent their hatred. This is bad. Chu Tian was in danger. Chapter 187. Yunyao had been instantly taken care of. Chu Tian was alone. How could he fight against the strong and overbearing three young masters? The weakest among them was Yi Tianlang, but he had already reached the fourth awakened soul layer and had been in the fourth awakened soul layer for over a year. Adding in the fact that his family's monster wolf transformation had been cultivated to the large success realm, he also had the secret skills of the Ye family, and he had fought with Yi Wudao for many years, so he had rich battle experience. His attack power, explosive power, and speed were all at a level that normal illustrious soul realm experts would find hard to fight. So what if Chu Tian won by luck in South Sky City? Everyone knew that he did not rely on his own strength, but rather he had borrowed the power of the Yin corpses and the array. If he really fought with Yi Tianlang, with Chu Tian's cultivation base, even if he had 10 lives, it would not be enough to kill him. Not to mention Luo Xianglong, who had the strength of a dragon and tiger, as well as the dazzling, undefeatable Chu Xinghe. Yun Tianhe's face turned livid and Chen Bingyu's face was covered in ice. The Chu, Luo, and Yi families revealed looks of joy. Chu Tian, Chu Tian, you also had a day like this? Now that you've fallen into our hands, even if you don't die, you'll still be crippled and thrown out. Meng Yingying and Meng Qinggu were in the Yun family's camp. When they heard this news, they were shocked. What should they do? Chu Tian was in big trouble this time. A Ye family elder walked in front of the two of them. Once Chu Tian is crippled, your backing will fall. Do you think the Yun family will continue to fight against the three great families for you too? Yun Tianhe angrily said, what do you want to do? Offending the three great families at the same time, it's impossible to escape unscathed. The Ye family elder coldly smiled at the two of them, but, this was all done by Chu Tian, so we can be merciful and give you two sisters a path to live. Now hand over the miracle commerce to us three families and we'll let you two sisters live. Being servants is already a kindness. This is too much. Yun Tianhe gave a loud roar and the Ye family elder was sent flying. This old man is here, it's not your turn to be arrogant. Meng Qinggu and her sister were furious. Too abominable. Chu Tian hadn't come out yet, and these fellows were in a hurry to swallow up miracle commerce. This Ye family elder had the support of the three great families, so he was not afraid of Yun Tianhe. The three young masters have a conflict with Chu Tian in the central state tower, so what if they kill or cripple Chu Tian? Shen Fengho couldn't stop it. After this, no matter how angry Yun Tianhe was or how dissatisfied the Divine Wind Marquis was, the Divine Wind Marquis couldn't just pull out the three great families, right? The two of you, think carefully. The Yun family can't protect you at all. Without Chu Tian's miracle commerce, what are you? Central State's four great families were the cornerstones of Central State City. The entire Central State County, from the main city to the small villages, were all influenced by the four great families. These several hundred-year-old families, if one of them fell, it would cause a large wave, not to mention three of them. If the three young masters crippled Chu Tian in the trial tower, would Shen Fengho be able to kill the three great families in a fit of rage? The three great families already had victory in their hands. As for whether Chu Xinghe's group of three could take care of Chu Tian, did they even need to think about this question? Offending them. This ending was already letting him off too easily. Who would have thought that at this moment, the Central State Tower would begin to tremble? The three great families raised their heads in anticipation. Was Chu Tian about to be thrown out? This was a moment of pride, so everyone opened their eyes wide to watch. A beam of light shot out from the top of the tower. Several numbers appeared in the night sky, 236 points. Ha, it's only 236 points. A member of the Ye family deliberately shouted out, the Yun family's waist has only obtained 188 points. The others also began to ridicule him. Yun Shao was so angry that his teeth itched, but he had no other choice. Actually, this result was a very eye-catching result in the past. This time's results were very normal, it could not even compare to Nangong Yun's. While the people from the three great families were still laughing. At this time, a person in a sorry state was suddenly thrown out of the tower and slammed into the ground. When everyone saw this person, they all stared at him like they had seen a ghost. All the ridiculing laughter was like a duck being grabbed by the neck, instantly silencing them. It wasn't Chu Tian. This. Wasn't this Yi Tianlang? This young man looked to be around 24 or 25 years old, wearing a moon-white robe. He had a tall stature and a devilishly handsome face, but his face was filled with anger as he roared out into the sky, "Little brat Chu Tian! We can't live under the same sky." It really was Yi Tianlang. The people from the Ye family that had been laughing at Chu Tian's low points almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Yun Shao began to loudly laugh as he shamelessly said, "Aya! Isn't this Prince Tianlang? How could the famous Prince Tianlang only have this low points? It seems like brother spends his days drinking and gambling, spending his days in brothels, he isn't any worse than Prince Tianlang." The Yun family broke out in laughter. The three great families were completely stunned. There were only the three young masters and Chu Tian left in the Central State Tower. Why hadn't Chu Tian been kicked out and instead Yi Tianlang was kicked out? Yi Wudao's scarred face twitched like a centipede as he asked in a deep voice, "What is going on here?" Yi Tianlang's pale face turned red. In front of this many people, he couldn't say that he had been defeated by Chu Tian. Yi Wudao had lost all his face and was filled with rage. "Quickly say it. It's Chu Tian." Yi Tianlang threw caution to the wind, "That despicable and sinister fellow, he sneak attacked me." Everyone was in an uproar. What was going on here? Ha, this is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Not to mention whether Chu Tian sneak attacked you or not, even if he did, so what? Nangong Yun said in a sarcastic voice, "Could it be that Chu Xinghe sneak attacking us is honorable and Chu Tian sneak attacking you is despicable and sinister? What a good mouth, truly worthy of being a stray dog young master. I think you only know how to bark." Meng Yingying's morale was greatly boosted as she immediately said, "That's right. The stray dog young master only knows how to bark and bite people. With just you people, you want to swallow up Chu Tian's miracle commerce? In your dreams." Yi Wudao and his son were filled with rage. The two of them did not even have time to react before the Central State Tower began to cheer and a string of numbers floated out, 257 points. Luo Xianglong's tall and sturdy body was sent flying and he fell to the ground, falling flat on his face. This time it was the Luo family's turn to vomit blood. What was going on? It was fine if Prince Tianlang was eliminated. But now even the Dragon Tiger young master had come out. But... damn! Luo Xianglong faced the strange gazes of everyone and felt ashamed and angry at the same time. Chu Tian sneak attacked me. The Yun family and the spectators all broke out in laughter. What a good sneak attack! In front of the three young masters, Chu Tian first sneak attacked Yi Tianlang and then Luo Xianglong. Did the three young masters eat shit? Even a sneak attack in front of them was still a sneak attack. Everyone in the Luo family was furious. Originally, the hatred between the Luo family and Chu Tian was the lightest. Although 2 elders and several deacons had been killed, they were only 2 ordinary elders, and ordinary deacons were even more insignificant. Until the Central State Great Games. Chu Tian had beaten Luo Jinshi half to death, causing the Luo family to lose a trial spot. Only then did they begin to hold a grudge against Chu Tian. In the end, not only had Chu Tian crippled Luo Jinshi, he had also thrown Luo Xianglong out of the trial tower, shaming the entire Luo family. This was a great shame. The Luo family members' eyes turned red as they gritted their teeth. They had to tear that fellow Chu Tian to pieces. The Ye family and the Luo family were all united against a common enemy. The Chu family was still calm and indifferent. Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang were only second-class people. The Chu family did not care about the so-called 4 young masters. How could 3 mediocre people compare to the divine flood dragon? There was only one genius in Central State City. That was Chu Xinghe. Whether it was mentality, talent, luck, or courage, Chu Xinghe was the best of the best. He had cultivated the Chu family's soul sword secret art to perfection and had even reached the large success realm in the ancient sword cultivation technique Imperial Flood Dragon Transformation secret art. Chu Xinghe alone was comparable to the other 3 young masters. So when they saw Yi Tianlang being eliminated and Luo Xianglong being eliminated, the Chu family did not panic at all. This was because the entire Chu family believed that Chu Xinghe was unrivaled in the younger generation. Chu Xinghe had been successful ever since he became famous. There were many rogue cultivators and geniuses that were shocked by his brilliance. In the end, they willingly bowed to Chu Xinghe and worked for him. It was impossible for such a powerful man to lose. This was the only person in Central State City that could become a superstar like Shen Fengho. Luo Xianglong was eliminated, and Yi Tianlang was eliminated. The Chu family was not angry, rather they were secretly happy. After this battle, the gap between the families would be pulled apart. With Chu Xinghe's fortuitous encounter in the trial tower, the other 3 young masters would not be able to catch up. Around half an hour passed. Hung. The Central State Tower began to shake and a beam of light shot into the sky, revealing a number, 400 points. It had broken 400 points. It was exactly 400 points. Everyone cried out in shock. Yun Yao's record had not even been set for 2 hours and it had already been broken by an even higher record. Was this Chu Tian's record? This was quite reasonable. Although many people couldn't deny it, Chu Tian still had some skills after all. Who would have thought that under the gazes of tens of thousands of people? A bleak figure slowly walked out from the tower. A blue robe, a golden sword, a white jade crown, a tall stature, and a powerful aura, just like a treasure sword. However, this treasured sword that was radiating a sharp aura had lost its usual sharp and cold aura. Instead, it looked like it had rusted. It was Chu Xinghe. The crowd was dead silent. Why was it Chu Xinghe who walked out? No one could have imagined this kind of result. The Chu family's minds went blank because this was too unbelievable for them. Chu Xinghe was a legend of the Chu family. When they saw a legend being destroyed, how could they not be shocked? Chu Shanhe was stunned for a few seconds. Xinghe. What's wrong with you? Chu Xinghe's expression was not right. He stopped moving and his eyes did not have the usual arrogance, only a blank and empty look. When he looked over everyone, he suddenly revealed a smile. "I've lost." After saying this, he spat out a large mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. "Quickly save him." The Chu family was shocked. They all surrounded Chu Xinghe and quickly carried him down. At this time, Chu Xinghe had already lost consciousness, falling into a coma. It was clear that when Chu Xinghe walked out, he was already seriously injured and could only force himself to walk here. "This is bad." A senior elder took Chu Xinghe's pulse and his expression changed as he said, "The young master's meridians are being burned by the netherworld flame. They are all showing signs of withering. I'm afraid his cultivation will be greatly reduced." The Chu family were all paralyzed. This was not because of Chu Xinghe's injuries. It was because this kind of injury could only be caused by a single person in Central State City. That was Chu Tian's netherworld flame sword art. In an instant, the last of the bubbles had burst. The Chu family had no choice but to face a cruel reality. The proud, complacent, and limitless leader of the four young masters had actually been defeated by Chu Tian's hands. Chu Tian hasn't been eliminated, but the three young masters have been eliminated. Chu Xinghe has never been defeated before. How did he do it? Yun Tianhe, Qin Bingyu, Xiong Wuji, and all the spectators were deeply shocked by this result. No matter the cost. "We must kill him. We must kill him." The hatred of the three great clans surged out like an avalanche. They had clearly realized that they had provoked a monster. This monster was not strong at the moment, but once he was allowed to grow, the three great clans would no longer have a place to stand in the Central Plains. In the distance, on a large tree, Shen Fengho's body was covered in a black cloak. He never thought this kind of ending would happen. The last person to survive was Chu Tian's trivial second awakened soul layer cultivator. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But people couldn't help but believe it. Chapter 188. Why did Chu Xinghe lose to Chu Tian? Actually, the reason was very simple. Chu Xinghe was too confident and thought that he could scheme against Chu Tian, not knowing that his every move was being grasped by Chu Tian. Chu Tian had found a substitute talisman in the purple gold treasure chest in the craftsman's palace. This talisman could swap bodies and could be used to block a fatal attack. Chu Tian had hidden the talisman behind a mirror from the beginning. Chu Tian had purposely exposed the light mirror array's blind spot. When Chu Xinghe thought that his attack had fooled Chu Tian, he exploded out with his strongest attack, attempting to kill Chu Tian. In the end, the moment Chu Tian was attacked, he automatically swapped places with the substitute talisman and appeared behind Chu Xinghe, seizing the chance to stab him with his sword. Chu Xinghe was very strong. There was no doubt about this. Although Chu Xinghe was only at the peak 4th awakened soul layer, not to mention a normal 4th awakened soul layer cultivator, even a 5th or 6th awakened soul layer cultivator would not have a 100% chance of blocking him. Especially when he was in the man and sword as one state, using the heaven-cutting art. But this person's character flaw was too big. He was arrogant, proud, and blind. This kind of seemingly strong person was actually very weak. He believed that he was the strongest and could not tolerate failure. This kind of belief allowed him to grow faster, but once he received a blow, he would not be able to recover. Chu Tian's sword had not only caused a long-time injury that could not be healed, it had also caused a destructive blow to his vanity and fragile heart. So if there were no accidents, he would not be able to recover in a short period of time. Chu Tian walked into the giant glowing door. When he passed through the door behind him closed. Chu Tian could not return to the giant's labyrinth and was now in a very strange space. It was a magnificent palace. Chu Tian walked a few steps, and the crisp sound of gold and silver came from under his feet. When he looked down, he was stepping on a small mountain of gold and silver jewels. The dazzling light made it hard for him to open his eyes. As far as the eye could see, the entire hall was filled with mountains of gold. That spectacular scene was beyond imagination. Numerous spirit-linked soul tools were displayed in front of their eyes, sacred medicines that were hard to find in the entire country, top-grade materials that were rarely seen in the world, priceless treasures, and incomparably powerful cultivation techniques were everywhere in this place. It was hard to imagine. Treasure. This was the real treasure. Any one of them here could be exchanged for an astonishing amount of wealth. The little fox's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. There were so many treasures, so many treasures, so many rare and precious items. If they emptied the entire vault, they wouldn't have to worry about food and drink for 100 years. The little fox could eat for 100 years. One could only imagine how many treasures there were in this palace. Congratulations, young human. A low and solemn voice sounded in the main hall. You've passed the final trial, you will obtain the ultimate treasure of the trial tower. The little fox looked around, but it couldn't find the person speaking. Chu Tian knit his brows. The so-called treasure is these common things. No, you have two choices. First, you can take away as many treasures as you can in the vault. For an awakened soul cultivator, this is an unimaginable amount of treasure. It will allow you to live a luxurious life without worrying about food or clothing for the rest of your life. The voice did not even finish. No need to say anything else. Chu Tian directly cut it off. I choose the second option. Oh. The voice in the main hall had a trace of surprise in it. You don't even know what you will face if you choose the second option. Are you sure you want to give up the wealth you have at your fingertips and chase after an illusory and dangerous opportunity? This doesn't seem like a rational choice. Wealth and status? You think I'm lacking money? The little fox scratched its head, clearly not satisfied with its master's decision. Chu Tian firmly said, I want to choose the second option. The voice in the main hall was silent for a few seconds before the low and deep voice slowly said, the second option, you will have a chance. This is something that countless almighty beings have dreamed of. But, if you choose to accept it, it will also mean danger. You might die because of it. Your wisdom, your ambitions, your ideals, they will all turn into nothingness. Your family, your friends, your lover, they will all be gone forever. Have you really thought this through? Chu Tian's eyes flashed with a trace of fanaticism. Don't talk nonsense. If I can't even accept a little bit of risk, what is the use of having wisdom and ambitions? The magnificent main hall disappeared. The little fox anxiously reached out to grab it, but whatever it touched, it was all nothingness. The gold mountain disappeared. The divine weapons disappeared. The sacred medicines and treasures disappeared. The entire main hall dimmed and fell into chaos. Finally it turned into a simple and broken bronze ancient hall. Although it was very large, it was very rusted and there was a kind of ancient vicissitudes of life everywhere. Reaching this point is enough to show your ability. Opening the array is enough to show your wisdom. Resisting the temptation is enough to show your wisdom. You meet all the requirements, you have the qualifications to obtain this inheritance. The little fox laid on Chu Tian's shoulder and gave a few cries, as if it was very angry. Did this fellow treat this fox as if it didn't exist? Even if its master didn't want the treasures, this fox did. The little fox looked around for a long time, but it couldn't find the location of the speaker. Or perhaps it could be said that there was no one speaking at all, it was just a consciousness. This consciousness had already merged with the bronze ancient hall. How many years has it been? This consciousness had a feeling of relief. You are the first person to reach this point. Chu Tian couldn't help silently criticizing it. Wasn't this nonsense? This trial tower's difficulty was very high and it restricted the participants' age and cultivation bases. Even in the era Chu Tian lived in, there weren't many people that had the ability to pass it. The Bronze Palace's voice continued, I'll remind you one last time. Although you have the qualifications to receive the inheritance, it doesn't mean you can accept it. If you can't fuse with it, you will die in the end. Chu Tian slightly knit his brows and then revealed a relieved smile. Oh. Then I want to see what kind of inheritance it is that can make me die in the end. The bronze palace did not say anything and a mysterious power descended onto the main hall. With a rumble, the ground in front of them split apart, revealing a pool of sparkling and translucent liquid. This liquid looked like the water of life. It was clear, sparkling, and suffused with a gentle light. However, it contained powerful energy, and its quality far surpassed that of ordinary water of life. In this mysterious pool of water, Chu Tian could feel an ancient Great Desolate aura. Could it be something left behind from the Great Desolate era? Not to mention what kind of water it was, just the trace of Great Desolate energy within it made the value of this pool of water hard to estimate. The little fox's sparkling eyes stared at the pool as saliva dripped from the corner of its mouth. Before Chu Tian could stop it, it jumped out and prepared to drink to its heart's content. At this time, the little fox suddenly felt some kind of pressure. It was startled and hurriedly ran back. Chu Tian was a little surprised. There weren't many things in this world that could scare the little fox. When he looked at the pool, he saw a whirlpool in the center of the pool and a 10-meter-tall crystal pillar slowly rose up, appearing in front of Chu Tian. Hong! Chu Tian couldn't help taking half a step back. The little fox's fur stood up as it revealed a strong hostility. When the crystal pillar appeared, there was an ancient divine god aura that instantly filled the entire main hall. It made Chu Tian's soul tremble and his main source spirit couldn't control itself, as if it had been provoked. This is... Chu Tian revealed a look of shock, the remains of an ancient god? In this 10-meter-tall crystal pillar, there was a giant head sealed. It had a bronze head and iron forehead, with horns growing from its head. It was around the size of a house. However, this head seemed like it had been attacked by a terrifying power, as a third of it had been destroyed. It was only the head of an ancient god that had been dead for millions of years, but it still released a strong aura that made it hard for Chu Tian to move. It was like his legs were sealed by some kind of power. Ever since the Great Desolate Continent shattered and the Great Desolate Era ended, there were no longer any demonic gods in this world. There were still the remains of demonic gods in every plane and the value of these remains was hard to imagine. Chu Tian had wanted to obtain an ancient god's corpse to study in the past, but after searching over half the continent, he couldn't find a single fragment. The fragments that had already been dug out were all kept by the large sects and powers, not lending them out at all. He never would have thought he would be able to find an ancient god's head here. Although there was only 2/3 of this head left, it was still considered a rare complete head. Demonic gods were existences with unlimited lifespans, so if he could obtain a demonic god's corpse, it would be a great help to Chu Tian's research. The ultimate hidden treasure in the Central State Tower, was it this ancient god's head? It could contain a secret that surpassed life and death, as if it matched the legends of the Central State Tower. Your expression doesn't change in the face of divine might. The Bronze Palace's voice sounded out again, young human, your quality is higher than I imagined. Chu Tian gave a snort, it's just a dead head. Is this my prize? That's fine, I'm barely satisfied. I'll take it with me. The thing I want to give you is not my head. What? Your head? Chu Tian almost peed his pants in fright. Could it be that inside the Bronze Palace, the one talking to him was the soul of an ancient god? Were there still living demonic gods in this world? Chu Tian thought of this. He suddenly became very excited. Spiritual god. This was a spiritual god. Wasn't that the realm he had been chasing after? As a scholar, Chu Tian had too many questions he wanted to ask. There were too many unsolved mysteries from the Great Desolate Era. Now that a living being had appeared in front of him, what could be more exciting than this? Even if he didn't obtain anything from this trial, just the chance to talk to a spiritual god was enough to make this trip worthwhile. Chapter 189. I can't answer any of your questions. The bronze palace's voice was very calm, as if it could see through Chu Tian's thoughts, because I have already fallen long ago. I only sealed a strand of my remnant will, so my memories of the past have vanished. Remnant will? Not only was this thing logical, but it also had the ability to think. How was it a strand of remnant will? If an ancient god's remnant will was so powerful, then how terrifying would an ancient god's complete consciousness be? But there is no need to be disappointed. The ancient palace's voice sounded again. A gray crystal descended and quietly stopped in front of Chu Tian. Take it. This is the crystal of the remnant memories of the past. If you can leave this place alive, you might be able to find the answer. An ancient god's memory crystal. It was truly a priceless treasure. Chu Tian revealed a joyful expression and carefully held the crystal. The ancient god's fall seemed to be very sudden and did not leave behind any inheritance. Even this memory crystal was very fragmented and the contents were very chaotic. Even with Chu Tian's ability, it would take a long time to decipher it. The Bronze Palace continued, I can feel that you have extraordinary power and wisdom. This fragmented knowledge can help you, but it cannot bring about any fundamental changes to you. It's far from enough for your dreams and ambitions to be realized by relying on it. This strand of ancient gods' remnant will could indeed peer into the heart. Chu Tian did not notice it at all, but he did not care. What do I have to do to escape the shackles of fate? Open up a realm that humans cannot reach. Human, you are still too young. A sigh came from the ancient palace, filled with vicissitudes and desolation. Fate cannot be changed. Even gods and demons cannot escape their fate, just like the destruction of the primordial era. I don't believe it. Chu Tian frowned, there is nothing impossible in this world. The ancient palace emitted a leisurely, tide-like energy. Chu Tian was in a trance as he was placed in a vast river of stars. A river flowed in all directions, grand, and surging. Trillions of small fish were swam forward by this river's great power. What was going on? Chu Tian turned into a small silver fish. Among the billions of fish, he was so inconspicuous, no different from the other fish. Chu Tian struggled with all his might, but he was unable to break free from the power of the river. He could only let the river carry his body in a fixed direction. Chu Tian seemed to have understood something. Fate was like a river. The gods were like ants, and the supreme beggars. There was no difference between the strong and the weak. They were all fish in the river. Were they destined to be brought to the same direction and destination? Chu Tian's body emitted a trace of hostility. What a bullshit metaphor. I don't believe it. Chu Tian roared, and a powerful aura emanated from the silver fish's body. Kaleidoscope-like pupils appeared in its eyes, and an ancient and mysterious power enveloped it, resisting the impact of the river. The small silver fish swam to the side bit by bit, directly crashing into the whirlpool in the river. The entire illusion immediately disappeared, and Chu Tian returned to the ancient palace. All living beings are fish in the river of fate. The ancient palace's voice was like the ringing of an ancient temple's bell. It was low and melodious, and contained wisdom. Perhaps a person with powerful strength and consciousness like you can change a fish, or even a school of fish. But always remember, the fish can never change the direction of the river, nor can they leave the river. It was like a wise and old man was diligently teaching a child. Life and death, prosperity and destruction. If there is creation, there is destruction. If there is life, there is death. The cycle of fate has always been fixed. There is no true immortality in this world, and there is no such thing as eternity. I can feel your ambition, but no matter how strong you are, don't try to challenge fate. That will make you lose yourself, and you will be pulled into the turbulent whirlpool of fate and torn to pieces. It was just a remnant thought. It made Chu Tian feel like he was looking up to a tall mountain. Facing a great existence that had lived for countless years, this was the first time he felt the limits of a mortal's wisdom. Chu Tian pondered, then what is the inheritance you are talking about? How can it help me? A kind of power. The bronze palace became solemn. This is a power that comes from the river of fate, and it is also the power that killed me. I hope that you can obtain it and try to grasp the laws of the river of fate. A power that can kill gods. That's right, I did not fall during the great ancient era, but rather I died under this power. Gods and demons were existences that could not be killed. When the great ancient era ended, the laws and order changed and contradicted each other, finally causing the lands suitable for gods and demons to no longer exist. Gods and demons lost their immortal bodies, causing a large number of gods to fall. Could it be that gods and demons could be killed by other powers? Although my body has fallen, I have sealed this power that killed me in my skull. After countless years of slowly refining it, it has now condensed into a seed. I hope that one day this seed will sprout in this world, and the goal of this trial tower is to find an inheritor like you. This power could even kill a divine spirit in the past. Could Chu Tian withstand it? This was obviously a rather risky inheritance. The little fox revealed an anxious expression. It used its claws to pull at Chu Tian, telling Chu Tian not to be impulsive. Chu Tian was indifferent. He withstood the pressure of the ancient god's head and walked forward step by step. He felt as if every step he took was as heavy as a mountain, and he even left a row of footprints on the sturdy ground. Interesting. Chu Tian walked into the pool of water from the great ancient era and stood in front of the incomparably large crystal pillar, slowly opening his hands. Then let me have a look. As you wish. Hong. A surge of energy erupted. The little fox was sent flying by a wave of energy. Chu Tian instantly entered the crystal pillar. Of course he didn't appear in his flesh form, but rather in his main source spirit that was like a demon god. That giant broken head was right in front of him. An invisible energy poured into Chu Tian's source spirit like he was enlightened. This energy was just too strong. One eye represents an extreme power and 9 eyes represent 9 strong powers. A surprised voice came from the bronze palace. You have the potential of a demon god. Very good. Very good. You will be a very good inheritor. The feeling of his soul being torn apart suddenly exploded. This kind of feeling, he had experienced it when his source spirit was born. Was he going to produce a source spirit again? You make it sound so scary, but it's not as hard as you think. No matter what kind of power it is, Great Master Chu Tian will accept it. Chu Tian gave a loud roar. The entire crystal pillar was shattered by the tremors. On the forehead of that fierce main source spirit, a crack appeared and a new eye appeared, but this new eye was closed. 9 is the extreme number, 9 is the supreme number. His potential is already incomparably strong, no wonder he can easily withstand this power. The bronze palace's voice slowly said, adding another number above the extreme number, what kind of good fortune is that? It really makes one look forward to it, but it's a pity I can't see it. Chu Tian was covered in exhaustion. What is going on? Why can't I feel any changes? The ancient god's remnant consciousness seemed like it could see through Chu Tian's thoughts. That ancient voice slowly explained, I am only responsible for leaving a seed. When it germinates and whether it can germinate, it all depends on fate. What if it can't germinate and grow? That's also because of fate. You are destined not to be able to control this power. This was too irresponsible. When the source spirit absorbed new power, there would indeed be some changes. Chu Tian could not say what the changes were, but a strong feeling of weakness enveloped him. It was like a giant hole had been opened in his body and he needed a large amount of power to fill it. Chu Tian sat down in the pool and immersed himself in the water. The entire pool of sparkling liquid had nourished the ancient god's skull for many years, so it already contained the power of a demonic god. It could be used to repair Chu Tian's body. Chu Tian took out a starlight stone and held it in his hand. Instantly, the water in all directions began to slowly flow. The starlight stone released a faint starlight that covered Chu Tian's body, making him look like a god descending to the mortal world. After obtaining this new power, Chu Tian had a chance to break through. With the help of the demonic god's water and the starlight stone in his hand, it was enough for him to make a leap. Chu Tian quietly cultivated like this. An entire day and night passed. He was like a sponge, absorbing almost half of the water. Pang! Chu Tian jumped out and his body turned transparent. His skin was like a top-quality diamond, but it released a faint starlight. Success! The starlight immortal body had successfully advanced to the diamond body. Chu Tian's cultivation base had easily reached the triple awakened soul realm. Chu Tian's cultivation technique had also advanced and his strength had increased by a large amount. Remember, unless it is a life and death situation, do not forcefully open the 10th eye. You are far from being able to control this power. The voice in the ancient bronze hall became softer. Maybe one day, the seed will awaken, grow, and become stronger. At that time, even the demonic gods will tremble for you. You mean, there are still demonic gods in this world? It is still too far for you. Chu Tian's spirit was roused. Although the other party did not directly answer, it basically admitted that the demonic gods had not died, maybe they had just left this world. My mission is complete. Wait. Chu Tian felt the other party was about to leave and immediately grabbed the fox. Can you help me see what it is? I don't know. Its bloodline contains a strong potential, its ancestor must not be simple, maybe it was a great demonic god. But because of my memory loss, I cannot tell you the exact answer. Isn't this nonsense? I also know its ancestor is not simple. I also know its bloodline is not simple. Just what the hell was this guy? What kind of ability does it have? The little fox proudly curled its lips, as if it was saying to Chu Tian, now do you know how strong this fox is? Quickly give me good food and drink. This fox will become a great demonic god in the future, naturally I will protect you. Pay! Is having a rich ancestor that amazing? Chu Tian hit its head, you are just a greedy and lazy damn fox. The little fox indignantly cried out. The trial tower's time is over. The ancient bronze hall's voice was not willing to say anything more. My last worry has been fulfilled and I will fall into an eternal slumber in the primal chaos. I will give you one last small gift. Farewell, inheritor. Chu Tian quickly shouted, what are you called? Please tell me. Regardless of whether the power was useful or not, he had received the other party's inheritance, so he should know the other party's name. However, the ancient bronze hall did not respond. Names were not important to this kind of existence. The pillar of light was completely shattered. Several black crystals fell from the ancient god's skull. Chu Tian gave a sigh and picked up the crystals to examine them. His heart suddenly skipped a beat. Blood? The blood of a spiritual god must be very precious. This divine blood was sealed by some kind of restriction. Even if he took it out of the trial space, he would not need to pay any price. It was clear that the ancient god had left it here on purpose. Otherwise, with the trial tower's rules, things obtained from outside the trial space needed trial points to be exchanged. How many trial points would an ancient god's skull require? It was simply unimaginable. This divine blood was enough. Chu Tian put away the divine blood and prepared to leave. The little fox gave a few cries and excitedly circled around the fragment of the divine skull, looking for something inside. Chu Tian knit his brows. What are you doing? You can't take these things out. The little fox picked up a large crystal-like jade ball and happily jumped up and down, just like a monkey that had picked up an apple. This thing was several times bigger than the little fox, so it should be the ancient god's eyeball. Then the little fox blocked Chu Tian's face and directly put the large eyeball into its mouth. That millstone-sized eyeball was covered in some kind of energy and it shrunk at a speed visible to the naked eye, finally turning into a size that could be eaten by the little fox. Chu Tian was shocked. Are you crazy? Quickly throw it away. This was a divine corpse. Could it be eaten as it pleased? Even if it was the little fox's body, it might not be able to take it. The little fox looked at Chu Tian with disdain. Like it was eating a small fruit, it picked up the ancient god's eyeball and threw it into its mouth. Chu Tian did not even have time to stop it, he could only slap his forehead. It's over. The little fox held its throat as it cried out, rolling around in pain. Its little body turned red and instantly inflated, becoming several dozen times its original size, almost becoming a small mountain. Chapter 190. The little fox's body continued to expand and its belly became round. He couldn't even see its head or four limbs, only leaving behind a giant ball that was over 10 meters in diameter. He really didn't know how this fellow's body grew. From a fist-sized little thing, it instantly expanded to a 3 to 4 story tall giant, but its body didn't even explode. Chu Tian didn't know what to do. The so-called heaven sins were pitiful, but one's own sins couldn't be avoided. The little fox becoming like this was all because it was too greedy. How long had it been since it was born? It actually tried to swallow the divine corpse. Wasn't this just nonsense? Chu Tian couldn't do anything. Whether it could survive or not depended on the little fox. He hoped that this fellow would have a good life and rely on its innate bloodline to resist the expansion of its divine power. The little fox's body continued to expand until it was over 20 meters tall. Then it gave a long cry into the sky and spat out a large amount of things from its mouth. Complex runes appeared on its belly and its perfectly round belly began to shrink back. Ding, ding, dang, dang. All sorts of things fell to the ground. A half-eaten corpse core, a chewed-up honey brick, all kinds of strange materials, and even gold, silver, and jewels fell to the ground like rain. Chu Tian's nose almost went crooked from his anger. This bastard actually stole so many things from father. Moreover, it didn't digest them at all, rather it used some kind of method to store them in its stomach. Just the gold coins alone were in the hundreds of thousands. I was just wondering why my money was always mysteriously missing. It turned out that it was stolen by this damn thief. What use do you have for money? Confiscate it. He had to confiscate it. Just as Chu Tian was about to take it back, he heard a long roar that caused the entire hall to shake. A fat fox that was more than 10 meters long suddenly pounced down and used its claws to protect the things it spat out. This was something it had painstakingly collected under its master's eyes. Those gold coins were used to buy snacks and food. Chu Tian gave a ee sound. This fox had already recovered. However, the little fox was still over 10 meters tall and its body was as fat as a ball. The large furry tail on its butt had already turned into 9. A 9-tailed fat fox. Was this its original form? What the hell is this? The fat fox's body slowly shrunk. 8 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters, 2 meters, half a meter. Finally, it returned to its original size and its tail turned back into a single tail. The little fox hurriedly stuffed all its personal goods back into its stomach before letting out a long sigh of relief. It wagged its big furry tail with a beaming expression on its face. Look! What about the god corpse? This fox will swallow it without hesitation. Chu Tian went up and smacked his head. Fuck you. The little fox didn't seem to have changed much. It was probably because it couldn't digest the ancient god's eyeball and used some kind of method to preserve it in its body. If the little fox had this kind of ability, why didn't it bring a few more fragments of the god's corpse? When the little fox realized his intentions, it quickly waved its paws and shook its head like a rattle drum. Don't even think about it. I won't do it even if you beat me to death. Swallowing this thing was simply too uncomfortable. Chu Tian used all kinds of threats and promises to the little fox. Finally, he was barely able to move it and it agreed to pack something else. It rummaged through the god corpse fragments for a while. In the end, it picked up a bone that was as clear as jade. A piece of the ancient god's spine. Chu Tian nodded at the little fox. The little fox revealed a brave expression as it braced itself and swallowed the bone. In the end, the scene from before repeated itself. After 10 minutes, everything returned to normal. The little fox was already exhausted and couldn't even crawl. Chu Tian knew that he had reached his limit. Nothing could be forced. Going too far was as bad as not doing enough. Alright, I'll give you a merit. Chu Tian grabbed the little fox, and one person and one fox walked out of the bronze palace. When they walked out of the bronze palace, the entire world was filled with chaos. A voice was transmitted into his mind. Surviving for 40 hours will be rewarded with an additional 200 trial points. Chu Tian looked at the jade token in front of his chest. There was a string of glowing numbers that clearly read 1352 points. This was Chu Tian's final score. Entering the reward space. The space around him reformed and Chu Tian appeared in a void. There was no ground or sky, it was like a chaotic world. There were all kinds of treasures floating around him, and each treasure was covered in a barrier of light. So many. Chu Tian had already reached the triple awakened soul realm, and now he had to try to break through to the fourth awakened soul layer. There was a bottleneck between the fourth awakened soul layer and the triple awakened soul. If there was no outside help, it would be hard to break through even after 3-5 years. Chu Tian needed a sacred herb. There were many treasures in the central state tower, but they were all level 2 items. There were occasionally level 3 items, but they were very rare. Of course, level 2 pills were suitable for awakened soul cultivators. Chu Tian quickly found a good material. An ancient vine that was like a dragon coiling around it. There were 3 fruits on top of it. 1000-year Bodhisattva fruit, a level 2 medium-grade sacred herb that required 220 trial points. The Bodhisattva fruit was a very rare level 2 material. It was born in a harsh environment and grew in the core of the earth. It was an elixir the moment it was born and could become a sacred herb in 1,000 years. This kind of herb contained the earth source qi. Not only could it increase one's cultivation base, it also had many other uses. Sacred herbs were also divided into different grades. In the Central State Tower's reward space, most of them were low-grade sacred herbs that could be exchanged for over 100 trial points. From the peak of the triple awakened soul layer to the fourth awakened soul layer, the low-grade sacred herbs should be enough. Chu Tian pursued stability and directly exchanged for a medium-grade sacred herb. Chu Tian could not forget Ying and the others. He generously spent 660 trial points and took all 3 bodhisattva fruits at once. The most important thing had been exchanged and Chu Tian still had most of his trial points left, but he did not know what to exchange for. Chu Tian did not lack weapons and he was not interested in cultivation techniques. As for pill recipes and ancient books, who knew where the ancient god had collected them from? Anyways, they did not have any value to Chu Tian. What is this thing that actually requires this many points? Chu Tian found a large gourd. This gourd was half the height of a person and it was completely green in color. There was a treasure light flowing around it that seemed to contain mysteries. There were even faint yin and yang fishes swimming around it. Limitless gourd, innate treasure, quality unknown. It has the ability to refine pills, store items, and absorb energy. It requires 650 trial points. Chu Tian did not know what race the ancient god had hired to build this trial tower and collect many treasures. This large gourd was clearly not normal. Chu Tian could not tell what it was. There were no traces of it being refined at all, which meant it was an innate treasure. The so-called connate treasures were things that were born in the natural world and could be immediately used and controlled by living beings. For example, Chu Tian's netherworld flame. For example, the large gourd in front of him. Was this thing a spatial storage tool from the ancient space? Actually, in the era Chu Tian lived in, there were storage tools everywhere. There were rings, bracelets, and even clothes pockets. There were large spatial chests and space warehouses. As long as Chu Tian had enough materials, Chu Tian could immediately create a storage tool. So just a storage tool was not worth Chu Tian spending large amounts of trial points. The most important point was that Chu Tian knew from the trial space's introduction that the gourd could not only be used to store normal items, it could also be used as a pill refining furnace. It could even be used to refine weapons, brew wine, and etc. It could also absorb energy and at a critical moment, defend against attacks. It was a storage tool, a portable pill furnace, a refining furnace, it could even brew wine, and it could even be used as a defensive tool. Chu Tian carefully felt it and was surprised to find that this gourd still had a strong life force. It was like a large tree that was still in its seedling state. As long as it was properly cultivated, it would have a large room to grow. This was not its final state. Not simple. Although the price to exchange for it was a bit expensive, this kind of rare innate treasure could only be found by luck. If Chu Tian missed this chance, it would be hard for him to find a similar substitute in the future. Those weapons, equipment, and cultivation techniques, they were all boring in comparison. Chu Tian decisively swapped out the gourd. Chu Tian did not have any trial points left, so other than exchanging them for useful items, he exchanged them for some normal items. It would be good to give them to his little brothers as gifts in the future. Chu Tian discovered a cultivation technique called 9-in Ice Soul. From the outline that was displayed, this cultivation technique seemed to have its merits. If he took it out and modified it and combined it with Chen Bingyu's cultivation technique, he would be able to create a higher-level cultivation technique. Although Chu Tian was very knowledgeable, it was still hard to create something out of nothing. However, it was not hard to modify or combine a cultivation technique. I'll swap it out. I'll use it as material. Chu Tian took out all the items stored in the trial space's storage talisman. This talisman was an illusion of the secret realm, so it could not be taken outside. A large pile of equipment and materials from the trial space, including the precious 10,000-year-old spiritual honey, the cultivation technique, and the Xidigarba fruit, were all placed into the large gourd. He put the gourd on his back. Not bad. Not bad. This thing was quite easy to use. Chu Tian found several good items, but he had used up all of his trial points. He could only let out a helpless sigh. He had thought that he had enough trial points, but it was not enough. The power sealed in the ancient god's skull had been transferred into Chu Tian's body, but Chu Tian had no way of using it and he did not know what this power was. But, even if he didn't look at this trip to the trial space was still a large harvest. The people living in this era were too fortunate. There were hidden ruins everywhere and any one of them could be explored. Perhaps there would be a shocking harvest. Chu Tian prepared to leave. Little fox, we've finished. We should go. Before he could say the last word, Chu Tian seemed to have been hit by a light. He forgot one thing. Wasn't the little fox also a trial participant? Although it had snuck in, it had obtained a trial jade token. This meant that the little fox also had trial points. Moreover, this fellow had killed several hundred demons before opening the treasure room and each demon had given him a large amount of trial points. The little fox could at least obtain 700-800 trial points from a single battle and 200 points from passing the trial space. Just this alone had already broken through 1,000 points and adding in the points he had obtained on the road. So, this fellow's total points might not be lower than father's. Chu Tian touched his shoulder and found that the little fox had already disappeared. No wonder, I was wondering why it was so quiet, it had already slipped away. Chu Tian was very clear on the little fox's bad nature, so how could he not know what it wanted to do? He was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. Fuck. This damn fox. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.